Great. Thank you, Grassroots TV. To anyone watching, you have tuned in to the Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, September 13th. We are in this wonderful meeting room at the Pickens County Library at the new renovation. I'm sure others have attended for public lectures and presentations. It is now going to go into the item of the sheriff's and administrative building updates. And so thank you. And you guys take it away. Just introduce yourselves for the record, please.
Great. I'm Dave Detweiler.
And I'm Jody Smith.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to take you back through some history to remind all of us of some decisions, points in the past of how we got to where we are today, and then show you some of the most current plans, and hopefully you'll be happy about what you see. So we go all the way back to 2014. We did a presentation to you about the problem, about two buildings, the old courthouse, that we couldn't adequately hold all of the current functions and staff. We had poor security because of public activities versus the court activities. And when we looked at that building, even after APD moved out, we were not going to have adequate spaces to address those issues because of the historic designation of the courthouse. And in the courthouse plaza, we had an inefficient layout that wasn't flexible. We had an HVAC system that was at the end of its life, IT systems that were at the end of their life. The building was not insulated at all on the exterior walls. It says not well insulated, but it just wasn't insulated at all. We had asbestos issues, and we knew in the coming years, community development was going to need to come back into that building. So we had a problem that needed to be solved. We went back and looked at some of the public input that we had gotten at a previous master plan study, and you can see there we had comments from caucus, from the board, from some public meetings, and they all kind of drove us back to some solutions. Those solutions were that the existing courthouse, which totals about 20,000 feet, had adequate space for the courts, the DA, and probation. It's again a very inefficient building, a beautiful, wonderful building, but inefficient in today's standards. So our space needs for those three departments and those three entities, including their growth, would adequately fit in that courthouse building, including some of the security upgrades that we think we'll need to do. And we looked at the rest of our departments, and we had R&L, a big firm out of Denver, do another updated program for us. And based on national standards, that program would have said we needed to build and have 51 to 54,000 square feet, which would have meant an additional 33 to 37 over what we have. We looked real hard at those standards, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but we did not accept those national standards. We also looked at a bunch of state buildings, recent municipal buildings that had been built, and we weren't willing to accept those standards in terms of how many square feet for a typical director office, how many square feet for a typical workstation that does XYZ function. So we looked really hard at those standards, and we reduced them to something that was more appropriate for how we work, more appropriate for the price of real estate in Aspen and the constraints that we have. So we pulled that 51 to 54 down to 36 to 40,000 square feet, which meant we needed to look at an addition of 18 to 22,000 square feet to the existing plaza building. As part of that program, we asked each department to project their growth through 2029, and we've heard various anecdotal questions as we've gone through this process about, are you building the Taj Mahal for this massive growth of government employees? And you can see here, no. We are very minimal growth, and that growth is just a function of what the community is asking us to do to provide services, but this is not a building that's being built for massive employee growth. So the solution, we build in addition to the public safety we call it a public safety building in addition onto the plaza. We use our existing site, house the sheriff and some admin functions. We'll remodel the courthouse plaza, and ultimately in the future, we would do a remodel of the old courthouse to better accommodate those three functions, the courts, the DA, and probations, and to provide those security upgrades. A reminder that we talked about back then, in late 2013 and 2014, we had R&L, that firm, look at the program and feasibility of a joint city-county building, whether that might be on the Zupanzis property, on our property. We really wanted to vet out, was there some economy of scale of working together and building one building to house both? That was reviewed and worked through with a joint group of county, facility, and sheriff staff and city, APD, and facility staff. And ultimately, the cost of the land associated with that option and the programmatic needs for both buildings just caused that to not be the most viable option. And so that was put on the side, but that was fully vetted, and we haven't learned anything since that has changed the conclusions we came to at that point. So what did we come up with? We showed you this plan. Again, this is back almost 2 years ago. We showed you that we would build in the parking lot between the jail, the courthouse, and the plaza, and that's still the case. I showed you this wonderful rendering that I had done with my Photoshop/PowerPoint of what a building might look like. And fortunately, you didn't laugh me out of the room with that one. So upon your direction to proceed with that project, we set up a visioning team. And that visioning team was made up of representatives of most of the departments involved in this building and involved various levels from directors down to frontline staff. We asked them to come in, and it was over a 4-month period. I think we had 7 or 8 work sessions. We asked them to develop value statements about who we are and how our buildings should reflect the values of who we are. And over those work sessions, we got, that's my beautiful stick people, but we went through a whole host of topics about sustainability, about entry, about wayfinding, about thermal comfort, indoor air quality, LEED, a whole bunch of topics. And the team really dug in and developed a bunch of statements that they summarized to you in a public meeting. I'm going to read through those real quick because I think they're really important in terms of the foundation of what we're doing. The Pitkin County Strategic Plan is visibly and experientially manifested in facilities and landscapes that emphasize sustainability, health, wellness, and a commitment to fiscal responsibility. Number 2, county facilities encourage and facilitate civic interaction with a clear sequence of interior and exterior public and semi-public spaces that are safe, open, and inviting. Number 3, county facilities provide an entry experience that is inviting, social, clearly navigable, safe, sheltered, and visually appealing. The reception experience is welcoming and provides clear wayfinding for public and staff alike. Number 4, public and private collaboration zones, meaning meeting rooms, are designed to be easily accessible, quiet, functional, and employee-sized arranged to minimize disturbance to adjacent uses. Number 5, county employee work environments are developed around functional and adaptable task-oriented spaces that, where appropriate, are naturally well lit and ventilated, providing a friendly professional experience for all. Departments are spatially situated to encourage effective workflow efficiency. And number 6, the overall experience of any facility invokes a sense of civic and employee pride, honors history, and encourages preparedness in the context of a safe and friendly environment. So a lot of words, but we look at those words all the time as we evaluate decisions that we're making with regards to the design. So at the same time that visioning team was happening, we were reaching out to the public in a whole host of sessions. I won't go through all of those, but we encourage public comment about design options, architectural design, energy considerations. And after those, we had several open houses, input on the website. We came back to you with some design options, some energy efficiency scoring, and some voting that ended up developing the design that we came up with. We had 4 exterior options. We all selected number 4 as our preferred option. So the designs that you see and ultimately the building that you will see is a result of all of that public and board process. And this is the rendering that we ended up selecting. Everyone is still very happy and satisfied with this from the design team and staff side. We think it'll be a great looking addition to the community. Another topic that we talked about was energy goals. It was discussed in several of our sessions. So staff did an RFP process and interviews, and we selected Schmeiser Gordon Meyer as our energy sustainability consultant as well as our commissioning agent. And they are working with us to review the preliminary plans and opportunities for energy savings and reducing our impact on the environment. We presented to you a while back in January some recommendations, and I won't hit all of them, but the big one you'll see is this energy use intensity of 40 kBTUs per square foot per year. A lot of in the community you hear terms about LEED. They're kind of the industry leader in certification and sustainability. That energy goal, along with some of the other things we just naturally do in terms of recycled materials and sustainable strategies, would put us on par with a LEED Gold or a LEED Platinum building if we were to pursue certification. We're not, because that's an additional expense that we all felt wasn't really providing any benefit. But I wanted to give you that kind of analogy of where we would fit on that scale, so that if you do get feedback from the public, you'll understand where we are. We also are looking to improve our energy efficiency from the existing plaza by about 70%, which is quite a big number. And that falls in line, our strategies that we're going to go through here in a minute, they really fall in line with some of that public input that we got. And you can see the public strongly said, we want you to include energy saving measures that are projected to pay for themselves over the useful life, really, of the strategy of whatever that is. And that only 10% wanted us to be that model to strive for a net zero regardless of cost. So SGM created this table for us as a method to compare where we would fit against some other buildings. And this energy use, which I could get into all the technicals, and we did at that meeting, this energy use of 40 kBTUs per square foot per year really puts us high on the mark of buildings that would have set standards in the state. The NREL research facility is only slightly better than where we are, and they have some opportunities for savings that we just don't have in terms of, especially in terms of their photovoltaic capability. So we think that's a really high target. We gave you this sustainability kind of matrix of the strategies that we're going to be doing, and there's a lot of stuff on there, but I did want to highlight the key components that came out of that. And these are questions that continue to come up in the community. Well, are you doing ground source geothermal? Well, we looked at ground source geothermal as a potential heating and cooling system. And given our site constraints, the fact that we would have a real hard time getting enough holes in the ground for the system, for our particular project, a variable refrigerant flow system actually panned out to be much more economical over a 20-year life cycle than the other options. And actually from an energy intensity per year, and those are some of SGM's acronyms of ECI.
Dave?
It's actually a little bit more.
What does ECI stand for? ECI of $1.26 per square foot per year in the newer building box down towards the bottom of the previous slide.
Let me see.
It's
if I
the
can
previous
go
slide.
back up. Hang on.
Maybe
One-
two, the one,
No, it's next one with the example project
Yeah,
there.
This one.
there.
Okay, so
ECI, right there by your
yeah,
pointer.
so this is just, we were trying to get some comparisons to other buildings so that sometimes that can
Well, what's
get,
the acronym?
energy, it's, I'll just go back, it's energy cost intensity. So it's this one right here. And if Dan was here, he could explain a little bit more to you, but we're trying to, again, come up with a number of ways to just look at the energy system. What does it cost per year over the life of the building? I couldn't give you the exact formula for how that gets figured, but I can provide that back to you after the meeting. It was back in January, and I'm just not refreshed on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and while we're answering questions, what is a variable refrigerant flow system?
So that's a good question. So I added a little bit of this is some new stuff, and there's a little bit of new information because I anticipated that question. So a variable refrigerant flow, and I'm going to show you more, but it's really at its core, it's a system that only works when it's needed for each area. So as we come up with separate zones in a building, it's a system that can independently for each area turn on, provide heat, provide cooling, and the key that really gets the energy savings, if one area of the building is hot because it's getting south-facing sun that day, and an area on the back is cold, it transfers that heat and that cool from one area to the other using liquid that gets pumped through the buildings, that kind of like your air conditioner at home, but it just moves that refrigerant back and forth to each room, each area that has its own unit that then transfers that heat in or out. So it becomes really efficient because it's not just pushing 70-degree air into an entire building that doesn't need 70-degree air, just one space does. So go ahead,
And I
Jody.
think that's, one of our goals has always been, that we're not only looking for energy, efficiencies, but also that comfort level. And so this will meet that because we've always been competitive in that area where one person in one office is freezing and they open, they close the window, another one opens them, and so we're fighting that. So
Yeah, the most efficient building is one that you're going to keep at 60 degrees in the wintertime, and you're going to let go to 85 degrees in the summertime, and you're going to dress accordingly. Well, that doesn't really work in the kind of environment and the kind of use that we have. So this is just a little picture of, when this area needs heat, rather than pushing air around these, they're called fan coil units, they end up taking that air and converting that heat or that cooling into fluid that then gets routed around through some manifolds and routed to where that temperature is needed. It's not the newest technology, so we're not cutting new ground and we're not out there on some crazy island of systems. It is a tried and true system. Hasn't been used in Aspen, but it has been used at our elevations.
What's the box on the top?
So that's so we're kind of like the condenser at your house if you have an air conditioner. It's the same sort of thing. So we'll have a number of those. I think we have 6 of those on the roof.
And
We
they're
also
quiet.
have what's called a direct outside air system for ventilation. And so what that allows us to do is separate in a building similar to this, that air that's coming through the register is getting heated or cooled to whatever temperature needs, and it's also providing the ventilation. in the system that we have, they're going to be two independent systems, so that heat and cooling can just happen independent of whether or not that space needs fresh air or not. And if a space needs more fresh air, the system can just deal with that without having to push more heated or cooled air through the building.
Okay, and just to kind of follow up on that, if the whole building needs heating, or the whole building is too cold, where does it dump the excess if it's trying to cool the
Outside,
whole building?
just like you would in your house, coming back to that condenser, that would expel all the heat, just like if you go to an air conditioner house and you have the outside unit, it's blowing out kind of hot air, but that transfer of heat and cold is happening through a liquid
Okay.
pipe.
Thank you. Steve, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, great. Please continue.
Sure. So some of the other things that we're doing that were a result of that big chart, I tried to bring it down to some real stuff. So we're going to, in order to meet the current code and do the kind of things that we want to do, the new code actually has a little sliver on the top of the mountains of a zone that's really prescriptive in terms of what we need to do. So we're going to end up having triple pane windows with ultra high efficiency glass and a high performance frame. It's actually a fiberglass frame in order to hit the performance goals that we want, and that's going to exceed code by about 20%. We're insulating beyond code, and the code, again, sometimes just saying you're doing something more than code sounds like you're not doing much, but the code here is the most newly adopted code, and we're in the highest zone, so exceeding code here means something. It's not inconsequential. So our roof is going to be 15% above what code would require. The walls will be, depending on the area of the wall, because there's different kind of construction types, they'll be 25 to 50% better than code. Our lighting will be 25 to 30% more efficient than code would mandate. And we are going to use the existing jail boiler plant as the source for any hot water we need for the building. So that is already an efficient plan. It's taking advantage of the infrastructure we've already put in place. Jody and her staff properly planned for future buildings and in putting that plant in, so it's great. We're not
Appropriately
having to put in
sized.
new boilers. Yep.
That makes great sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a home run.
That's awesome.
So what do you mean by hot water? Do you mean for hot water for use or hot water for heating?
We still have some hot water that we will need for heating, primarily in the garage, because that's a separate system in terms of how that gets heated. And snow melt will be run off of those boilers as well. We're going to have some snow melt associated with this building.
But it's primarily for hand washing and hot water in the building?
Not those boilers. No.
They're big boys.
There'll be a hot water heater
Yeah.
of some sort
Yeah.
that will take care of that part.
Kind of a on-demand hot water closer to the faucets?
Yeah, I haven't even looked
We
at
haven't
that
looked
yet.
at that.
Yeah. So that's sustainability. So now we want to talk about floor plans, and this is the piece that you haven't seen before. We've been waiting until we had fully vetted things through the staff. So a reminder that our program standards are 20 to 25% below the national and state standards in terms of each individual office, cubicle, workspace. Each department had at least a department head, if not multiple people from their department. We had multiple meetings with the project team and the architects to develop each department's layout, so they had full participation in all that. And to be honest, we had some areas where conflicts arose, where one department's desire for something kind of got in conflict with another department's desire when they were sharing the floor. So we just said, let's all get in the room and figure it out. And we had several of those, and ultimately every time came to an acceptable solution, which was a testament to the staff. The staff really was understanding the visioning statements, understanding that fiscal responsibility component of that visioning, and not asking for stuff that wasn't needed. It was refreshing that staff was that good about it. And again, at each stage, we went back to those visioning statements and an original program, and we said, have we gotten off track? You will see some variations where, the building standard would say that this particular function workspace should be a 8 by 10, but because of the layout of the building, it ended up being 9 by 11. Our building footprint meant we had to move around a little bit. So here's the plans. So basement level, you're going to drive in. This is back by the jail coming from Rio Grande. You'll drive into the garage. This is all secure garage along with some mechanical stuff. This elevator and stair is how the sheriff and the APD will access up into the sally port of the jail. So when they have an inmate, the detainee, they pull in, bring them in, walk them up into the sally port, and work just like they used to. The other thing of note right here is this door is that connector to the APD garage, so that when they need to come through and get to the jail, they can do it in a secure manner as well.
Can I ask, how do they get from the Sally Port up if they have a detainee who is restricted in that rolling chair?
They'll go up that elevator.
So they will have access up that elevator
Yeah.
to the Sally Port that exists?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So also at the lower level, so this is on the south end. I'm going to go south-north on all this. You'll essentially have an area that's evidence processing and storage for the sheriff. And that's all been laid out to current standards, and we're just now developing some of the specific pieces of equipment that we'll be putting in there. And then we have at the very south end, which is where BITS has most recently been, that'll be a training room, and it'll function as the elections processing center when we're in an election mode.
I have another question. There's a restroom, but it looks like it's only accessible to the evidence area. So people in the elections section would have to go
Yeah,
upstairs?
there's another
Oh,
restroom
there's-
right here. I'm sorry, it kind of got cut off.
Oh,
There
okay.
would have been a note that said restroom.
Oh, I see the
So,
toilet.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we recognize that. So again, that's for the sheriff folks. There is some connectivity between here for staff that needs to get through, but primarily this has some public component to it, so we can lock down in that whole evidence.
Do we need a restroom in evidence? Because restrooms are expensive.
The reason things would be there is while processing evidence, and
Wash your
if
hands.
bloody, if you have something bloody from, we
Okay.
didn't want that person to have to walk through the
Well,
building
yeah,
and walk through a
but
public
hopefully
space.
well, whatever, okay.
Yeah.
And I think from experience, I mean, sometimes those guys and even CBI or whoever comes in,
Are restrained, and that's,
they might be down there for
and
hours or
and
days.
restricted down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't want them running up and down the stairs.
Yeah.
So again, this space, while it was primarily designed around that elections function so that it would work well for the elections function. When that's not happening, this is a great multi-purpose room that we can use for training, meetings, and it'll be available during those time periods. So first floor, I wanted to give you the big picture again. We're going to talk a little bit later this afternoon about the Veterans Park component, but you'll see we've got this new entry walk coming into our lobby, and I'll show you the blow-ups here, but essentially sheriff, the BOCC meeting room and multi-purpose room, lobby, and then clerk and recorder, just to give you that kind of general layout. So when you come in the front door, you're going to have a lobby with an open stair. We're planning for a reception location in case we ever, from a staffing standpoint, decide that that's the right thing to do. We wanted to make sure that we had the capability to provide a reception person there. If not, we're actually, you can see it notated here, we're also developing an informational kiosk, kind of an interactive component, that if there's not a person there, someone could come in to that kiosk and get whatever information about meetings or directions to rooms, whatever that may be. We have immediate access to the BOCC room. We have looked at some layouts to that before. Again, this seating capacity exceeds the old room by about 3 times just from the get-go. And then we have a big multi-purpose room that will function as that for most of the year. It will function as a vote center. When we're in an election mode, that'll be where we set up the vote machines. And then on those rare occasions when we have the giant public meeting, that room can open up into this room. We're going to come back and show you, probably in a few weeks, I just got today, a number of options of how we might open those rooms up to connect them. Some that have cost considerations, that have sound considerations. We're just starting to vet those to make sure we come up with the right answer. So also coming off that lobby, then you'll enter to the sheriff's lobby, a separate, slightly more secure lobby. So people who are having discussions, sitting and waiting for whatever business they have with the sheriff don't have to sit out necessarily in the more public space. Then Joe's got his directors, his patrol staff. They all have quick and direct access back to that stair to get down into the garage. That was a key component, that their patrolmen can get out fast to that garage. So that kind of drove why they're in this area of the building. They've got their administration and support back to Joe's office, Ron's office, some investigation interview rooms, which we don't have now, and then a conference room that can support their needs. This really does provide all the spaces that are lacking in the current courthouse in terms of them functioning in the way that they need to function. They were probably the most deficient department out of all of the groups in terms of having what they needed to do the job that's mandated of them to do.
Can we, as members of the board, we have that escape route? Can
Yep.
we access that staff restroom from there?
Yep, there you go.
Right now, this door would be key card controlled to keep anyone that stair is a fire exit for the upper floors. So in a fire, public may go down that stair, and we don't want them coming back into this. We need them to be exiting out. So that'll have a swipe card. If everyone works out the logistics of, yeah, we're okay to have access, that's kind of a Joe thing, then yes, you could come through, swipe
that staff
swipe
room
your card.
Yeah, because we're not usually privy to swipe cards. You don't trust us with those weapons. So.
Yeah, one of the things that we're still resolving where we want to be on the security level. You know, that's a big thing, to how secure do certain areas of the building want to be versus how open to the public they are. And that's a good push and shove conversation to have.
It's just for us to be able, otherwise we have to go either right through the meeting room to the public restrooms or right through the meeting to the public restrooms.
It's a good question, and I think
So that's something I'd like us to think about. So we can always ask the chair for the key to the restroom, like you do in the
Yes,
gas
right,
station.
I'll keep it around my neck.
Yeah.
The other item, while we're just on this point, and I'll be brief, but the sound between the meeting room and then the additional room is just critical.
Yep.
And I know you know that, but
Yep.
we've all been in meetings before when, just 10 feet over your shoulder, there's so many people talking, it feels like you're in a cafeteria.
Yep.
And so that is, critical that we, and the public who are there to attend the meeting, don't feel like they're, just shadow boxing with a whole group on the other side.
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
had originally had some just opening doors there. We're really looking at our options, and like Dave said, we got 3 options today of some different types of doors, and each one of those talks about what the
Sound rating is.
Yeah,
That, and then actually in the smaller meeting room, if can be some real, sound absorption panels,
Yep.
either on the roof or whatever, that will really deaden it as well.
Yeah, those are planned, and actually one of the options that we're looking at is actually a set of doors like you have here that could open all the way up. And we're just checking the sound rating of what we can how far can we go with a set of doors like that?
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So then working around, again, you'll see this on the typical floor. We have a set of public restrooms along with our elevator access right off the lobby. And then there would be the entrance into the clerk and recorder's office. And you'll see that.
Are you walking in the door, Steve?
That core is kind of set up on every level.
We need those virtual goggles to like do the
We'll be getting there for you in the future.
So clerk, again, we have them. They have a larger seating area, something that's adequate right now. Well, in the old space, it was tough to get all the people that needed to be in there, and a lot of people would come in and just turn around and walk out because there wasn't enough room for them.
It's a waiting area.
To wait. So they'll have that. They'll have a big kind of public counter here. That's this line. And all their service points for DMV and clerk will all happen off of that public counter. They have offices along the front, and it won't be entirely clear here, but most of the offices that you see on these plans will be built out of systems furniture panels, which will allow us to have unlimited flexibility to move as our needs change. We can set those panels up in a different way. They'll go floor to ceiling in a lot of cases to provide some privacy, but what we really asked was, does the task that you do, your job description, does it need unlimited privacy? And we really designed the spaces around the task and the job responsibility, not the person's personal preference as to what they wanted to be, because we really wanted to be flexible so that as the needs changed and what we were being asked to do changed, we could very quickly.
And Dave, in terms of that percentage, we're about 80% modular, 20% hardwall, 75,
Yeah, it was high 70s
75, 80.
modular, yeah.
Yeah, and so naturally, the security also of various documents came into play with that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely, yep.
So I have to ask, we have a bike storage inside in that upper, that,
Yeah, so we
miss anything on these?
part of what our values and our visioning team said was that our employees, we want to encourage health and wellness in our employees. We want to encourage them to be riding their bikes. We heard very strongly that there was some component of employees who would perfectly fine to drive the little clunker or to use one of the bike resources in town. There were other folks who wanted to take their good bike.
I'm looking
and
next
ride
door
them
here.
memo.
I may have had something to say.
And so we wanted to provide, because we didn't want to design all these offices or workspaces
With bike space.
larger so that they could accommodate a bike. We felt like it was more efficient in the grand scheme of things to provide a space that people could put their more valuable bikes in, so that we didn't have to use
But we'll
up.
still have exterior bike space for
Correct,
people.
we still have exterior. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, this came down to a discussion a little bit about who we are. And, one of the things that struck me when I first came into the organization was the number of bikes and skis that were throughout the office spaces and such. And it really became part of the dialogue about, well, gosh, if we're shrinking from these national standards, what about? How are we going to do?
Yeah.
And so we thought it was better to design some of that space in for our employees because it's so deeply ingrained in the culture.
So in the winter, could they put their skis in there?
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't gotten down to the details of
But
what
that's
exactly
good.
that
That's
setup
It's
is.
like building a employee housing with storage space for toys.
Yep. George?
Do we have showers, and where would they be?
Yeah, so
Right
there's
there
one,
next to the
so there's
bike
one
storage.
shower here. That would be for those folks who have ridden in or
On their fancy
exercised
bikes.
or,
Skied at lunch.
went lunchtime.
Crashed into deer.
We're, again, trying to promote that wellness and trying to recognize who we are. It's also a good employee retention and
But it's not a gender shower separated?
that one is a unisex that whoever gets there first gets it. And that was a topic of discussion.
Is that the only one in the entire building?
Now there is, let me go back.
Sure.
The sheriff has one. It's a little bit cryptic, and this may not even be the most current layout, but this bathroom for the sheriff is going to have one so that if they get contaminated in some way, that they have the ability to get cleaned up as they come out of the garage. They can come up that stair and go right into that.
Can it be used by overflow for other staff?
Not encouraged. We are trying to keep the
That's
secure component of the sheriff separate. One of the shortcomings of where they are now is how public a space it is, and that interaction is just not conducive to the work that they're trying to do.
Yeah,
We're down to about 18 minutes, but George,
that's fine. I don't take up much time.
I'm
Rachel.
giving Dave the heads up more than you.
I guess my concern is because we're now going to be consolidating a lot more staff in one spot, and knowing our lifestyles, I just wonder if people are going out for lunch hour, for rides, for skis, for hikes, and coming back in want to shower. I just question whether one shower space is going to be adequate.
Well, it's certainly something we could take a look at. I think generally if folks are using lunch and such, they're probably not coming back and taking a shower, just because of the time constraints and those sorts of things. We're pretty tight in the building was our other challenge in terms of finding additional spaces. This is it's certainly something we could take a look at. I don't know where else we might locate one.
Yeah, the tightness component is a very big component. We are trying not to build any square feet more than we need to. Mm-hmm. We're accommodating that future growth, but we're trying not to get any bigger. And we're restricted on every side of the building as to how big we could get.
Yeah, I would.
But we can certainly look at that.
Just take a little closer look, and even in that one space, if you had ability to separate for gender, I mean, then you create two showers. I don't know, but I'm concerned about that because you're really increasing the number of staff in one building now, coming from two other buildings.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, George.
Do they have two separate showers in City Hall?
I don't know.
They have a shower, for sure.
They have one shower in the basement.
Yeah, and then you've got the assessor and the treasurers coming over, and so you're accommodating everyone in one building, but we're only limiting it to one shower. So
I think we should look at George's thing and see if there's any way that can be accommodated. The second is I want to make sure we have a clear maintenance path on that. Because the shower downstairs in the old building, it was like everybody's responsibility, so nobody's responsibility. It got pretty foul.
Yep, that happens a lot. People fight for the showers, but then they don't really use them,
or they don't scrub them afterwards.
So that's the clerk, first floor. We move up to second floor. This admittedly was the floor that caused us the most work because we had some high desire for easy public access for the assessor and for the treasurer. So we wanted folks who came up the stair, came up the elevator to find those departments quickly. But we couldn't tuck open space and to a lesser extent bits so far in the back that you couldn't find them. So we went through probably 15 iterations of this floor plan. Came up with this one that, again, we got all of those groups together and said, guys, we got to come up with a solution that works for all. So you come up that elevator, treasurer, assessor sits along that front face, open space and trails, back in the corner, bits, back here. We've got a common conference room that also is available for any staff or if we choose public to use, that's off the main lobby. And then we've got the assessor kind of happening back here. So you can see there's not a lot of empty space in any of this. We also have this map room that over time as the maps go more to GIS and we don't have that physical component as much, this will be another conference room once we turn it into that use. Then on the south side of second floor will be ComDev. Again, you'll enter off that lobby, which is right up here. Their space looks more confusing than it probably is in terms of how it lays out, but this
should
was
be able to
one that
figure it
they actually drew the layout for this.
That's why it's
We
more
gave them a couple of options, and Cindy and her staff got together and said, "How about this drawing?" And our architect vetted that and said, "Sure, that works just fine." So it was a testament to their ability. So again, up here we have a conference room that while it's not directly off the lobby, we tried to keep that up towards the front, that again, all staff would have access to that on an as-needed basis when these guys are not using it.
I have a question real quick.
Sure.
How come Cindy's door is off of the elevator lobby?
So Cindy wanted some flexible space, and so rather than having a larger office that some of the other department directors were asking for, she has a barn door essentially. So it allows this smaller meeting room to be available for use by her staff, but she can use it as when
Right,
she
to
needs
get
it.
in, but if there's a
And
meeting in there, she has to go all the way around the building.
So it gave her the other way to get out. She can come up through the workspace or just go out the stair if she's leaving the building. It was a way.
I noticed that.
It's really, we're promoting multiple uses of any given space. And while it's a little bit funky and some folks may not want that,
Well, it makes sense for Cindy, but what about her successor?
if it doesn't
You can
work,
open it back up.
then this wall could easily come out,
So
that
she'd
door
have that
gets
wall
locked up,
space.
and it's a
Okay.
regular wall.
I just didn't like
Yeah.
the
And
lack
it's
of
still
connectivity.
systems furniture.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, this
okay.
one isn't.
That one.
That one would be.
Okay, George?
If we're looking at going towards a possibility of adding a new department, public health, have we accommodated them in this floor scheme at all?
No.
And do we need to? No, okay.
No, I don't. I don't think so. And we'll have to talk more about that. We're right now looking at options within our existing Health and Human Services building, and we might have some other synergies and partnerships in the future where we could accommodate
Okay.
them.
Michael?
Yeah, put a shower up there. They're always going to yoga and
I was thinking that about open space and trails. They're always muddy.
that's crazy that they don't have a shower.
We will
Put it
look
in
at that.
Cindy's office.
Okay.
True multi-purpose. So then we move up to the third floor.
This
So-
one's even better.
So again, you're coming up that elevator or you're coming up that open stair. We'll show you later some of the renderings for this open stair. It has that skylight. The stair has that skylight component on top of it, so it really is a big shaft of daylight that's coming down through the building. But you come up, we're going to have a large conference room that lets these south-facing windows bring light all the way through. This wall will be all windows as well, so it'll help bring that light into that lobby space.
And will there be blinds that we can pull down so that, okay, thank you.
Yes. There will be blackout shades and these sort of what we call a perforated shade, both.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more internal
Yep.
if people were, okay,
Yep.
having an executive
Yeah,
session.
one of the components, if you remember back to the visioning statements, that daylighting component was
yeah.
really, and so we've talked a lot with the employees and the design team that while we want to have the ability to do that, we want to resist always dropping the blind.
Sure.
So that we can maximize that daylight for folks. So back here we have the county attorney. Because of their work scope, they'll be in more private offices because they need to have so many confidential conversations. They have a conference room, again, that'll primarily be used by them, but we've said to everybody, your space will be open to others on an as-needed basis. So again, come out of that elevator or come up that stair, you're going to have an entry into the admin. You'll get greeted. County commissioners, your guys' space
So
is
you
over
guys
here.
did note that you have replaced Steve Child with Bob.
There's a ghost in the building.
Bob Child was,
Okay, guys, we're running short on time to get sidetracked.
no, it says Bob on the map.
Yeah.
So just give us a little break.
Okay.
We were
Where
not
is the
consulted.
break
such a
room?
hurry.
What is the size of the break room
So
for all the employees of this building?
this room is multi-purpose. It will serve as that break function. So we have a small kind of kitchen component, sink, dishwasher, refrigerator, that sort of setup with lunch table. It will also spill out onto a deck. And again, this whole box up here is the floor plate of the floor below and is the opportunity for us to grow in the future. We can build out over this structure. It's designed structurally to take another floor on top. In the short term, we would use this area here for an outside deck space, both for staff to take a break. You could have a public meeting out there. It's really minimal cost to allow that to be an outdoor space.
Okay.
So then admin, again, back to their staff offices, and again, a conference room for their needs back there. And on the south side, you'll come again through that lobby. Immediately, you'll be into HR, again, from HR's HIPAA rules. They'll all be in private offices because of the kind of conversations that they have. Come down the hallway, access into finance. Finance will be using the systems furniture, but again, they're set up in kind of an office type layout, but it's using systems furniture. And then we've got another conference room to be shared by everyone, just off that corridor.
Dave, our doorway entries and halls are all handicap accessible?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you. Steve?
If we do a executive session in our board meetings, what is it anticipated where we will go? Which room will we use, do you think?
So if we adequately meet your needs from a sound transfer component, this is one option. Understanding that the people that you may be executive sessioning from, and maybe that's the wrong way to put it, might still be sitting in here. In the not too distant future, this room, it was originally designed as a conference room that was going to be right across the first floor, go right through the lobby into the clerk space and into this that was designed as a conference room. Janice recently got some new directives from the state in terms of what she does and doesn't need to say for how long, and that's causing her a short-term storage issue. So she'll be using this space for some storage. I don't know the exact time parameters, but in the not too distant future, this will go back to a conference room. You could use that one. If that does not meet, then you could come up to the second floor conference room here. We could potentially work out, if you've got access into the sheriff's space for the bathroom, you get access back to the sheriff, which is probably the most secure conference space there is.
So there would be various options, and
Yes.
even the Board of
Yes.
County Commissioners reps.
Yes,
for that
exactly.
matter.
I think the worst case you'd have is we'd have to get on the elevator and go to the third floor, and we have the conference rooms either in the attorney's office
just
or
in the
admin.
elevator.
So the great thing that we've been able to do with this building is those both public and private meeting spaces that we've really been so short of. We've been able to accommodate, so we'll have plenty of options.
Great.
So that's it on floor plan. Questions, concerns on floor plan before I delve on? And I got 3 minutes.
Yep.
So timeline, as you guys can see, there is some work happening out behind the jail right now. That's really a part of the city's utility relocation project. But it does kind of kick off the construction efforts that we all are getting into for the APD building and our building. We have our contractor is out for bid right now on the project for their final subcontractor bidding. We are also out for our abatement bids right now. We anticipate here by the end of the month to be starting our asbestos abatement in the plaza building. And then early November, somewhere around the 9th, we'll start the interior demo there and start digging our hole. We've got our first round of comments back from the city on our permit, and they seem perfectly reasonable. There's a handful of them, but there's nothing that I think we're arguing about. So we're on the way. And that would still have us, again, in an early 2018 completion of the construction, and then the move sequence back here in springtime of 2018.
Can I ask, currently, are we clearing that driveway first, that emergency driveway for the Sallyport issues? I noticed that's where the first work is going on over there.
Yeah, what's happening now is actually connection of a new transformer for the jail and the courthouse, which allows that old primary electric service to go away, and that's part of the city utility relocation stuff. As they come out of that, they're going to build that fire truck access for us as they pull out, and then we'll have to put
And in the interim Sallyport access
Yep.
for the jail. I know that's been a critical issue for the SO.
Okay.
And then budget-wise, nothing has changed here of late. We're going out for financing right now, and again, the contractor is out for subcontractor bids right now. We should have by the end of the month our guaranteed maximum price, and that's really our last big component to nail down how do we sit.
Very good.
Questions, concerns?
I guess the last question would be, how are we doing with the city permitting?
So again, we got our first round of comments back from engineering, building, mechanical, civil. They all seem reasonable. Again, we had concerns that there might be a couple of bigger picture issues that might crop up. City staff has been great so far. Every indication would say that we're all in this together and we're trying to get to the same place. So we still have to respond to those comments, but right now we're on track to have permits when we need them.
Great. Other board member questions? Well, then let's move on to the next item, which is related, obviously, to this, and that is the Veterans Park redesign and preservation. And I see we have Dan Glidden here with us. If you want to move up, that's great as well. And Jody, if you want to stick around, you sure can up there. Okay.
Next.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Chair.
And those microphones are just
that's
directional if you need to turn them towards yourself or anything by the little stem there.
So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? And
Hi, my name's Nick Soho. I'm the landscape architect on this project. I work for Greg Mosey and Associates, and I've been with him and in the valley for 28 years.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Dan Glidden, I'm here to represent the veterans, Veterans Park, and I know most of these folks here.
So let me walk you through a little bit of how this came to be a topic for us to be talking about. As we showed earlier in our plans, our construction project, we recognized that there would be a construction impact on the Veterans Park, that we would need access off of Main Street, that we would be cutting down some trees and needing to do some reconstruction of some type at Veterans Park at a minimum. We were going to be forced to do something there. So somebody had a very smart idea and said, well, maybe we should talk to the veterans and say, hey, if we're there anyway, is there some smarter, better project that the community would benefit from if we all get together on this and look at something a little more creative than just restoring what we had? But restoring what we had has always been an option. So we got together with Dan and Colonel Merritt and a whole host of other folks in a whole bunch of work sessions. We got together, I think we're now on 7 times beyond this. And we've gotten these folks together to talk about what could happen there. In one of the work sessions we said, if you just had your dream, what would it be? And we looked at lots of images of other monuments and other parks. And the goal today, we're going to show you some images and talk about some things, but we want to get some feedback on your take on the proposed project that this group has come up with, about the process we've done, and just see if we're on track to continue to pursue what we're going to show you. Before I do, and this was in our memo, I want to hit again the values and goals that have been described by the team, because I think they are really fundamental to what you will see. Rule one, and we've seen the pictures. We all know the story about how Steve's dad went out and threw the snowball, right?
Yes, me to throw it. I did.
And through the snowball.
Oh, Dan threw the snowball. See, I had the story wrong. So the snowball established a spot, and when that monument got placed, we've seen the pictures of all the remembrances, the dog tags, the photos, the important things that are in that concrete. And that concrete is sacred. And that concrete will not be touched by us in any way as part of this project. That has been foundational to everything that we might do. The park needs to remain as a solemn and contemplative space. It did not want to be this open, music playing thing. People are there 360 something days of the year when we're not doing the big events for a more solemn reason. The park did not want to be a cut through. It was very important to the veterans that this not be designed in a way that encouraged just general traffic to cut through, either cutting to the path here on the asphalt bike path on this side, or to the front entry of our new building. That was very important. The park wanted to better accommodate larger public events, better seating, sightline, sound. When we do have those big events, if we could come up with something that better accommodated that was going to be a bonus. And then we haven't looked at it in a while, but when we looked at those exterior elevations of our building, we have that canopy that's on the west side of the existing plaza building. That was thought to be a great benefit to the Veterans Park if we're having an event and it's inclement weather. There's an area that speakers or public could be protected from that weather. So we wanted to have our park lay out in a way that allowed that to be used. Is that a fair representation of?
Nicely done, yeah.
So I'm going to let Nick kind of walk you through, because he's the guy that heard all of those goals, heard from the veterans in a couple of work sessions about what was good and bad in terms of the existing park and what they would want, and Nick came up with this design, so I'll let him.
All right. Well, the design evolved from these meetings we had, hearing their needs and their wants. Right, so we put that together as opportunities or constraints, the difficult things you have to get through. We have 3 buildings that this space also has to work with and react to. We wanted to make sure that the courthouse had enough space in the park that it stays as a historic courthouse. And now we have to react with the new remodeled courthouse plaza and the access to the sheriff administration. And that being said, when the original layout of the monument and the area around it's a circle, it was just natural because a circle works well with different shapes because it's very pliable and it absorbs the people or the design. So it works well like that. So what I did, the veterans, they wanted to have some more privacy. And right now it's at the same grade And when we have the mementos that are buried below, it's kind of tough. We can't move anything. We can't disturb it. So I came up with an idea that we encase the edge of what's there and what's buried, and actually lower the grade in there 18 inches, so that when you come from the street, you ramp down at a very moderate couple percent under ADA compliance, of course, all this is. And then that gives the memorial and the monument itself
A little more stature.
Yeah, it becomes more important. It's the center of the circle, it's lower, has more importance. And so around that, I developed some built-in seating with some small planters. And you can see the seating is different sizes. Some could fit a family, some could fit two, some could fit three. Because after hearing their needs, if you're going here, maybe to remember lost ones or to contemplate what you've had, you need different spaces. So you want to feel like you have some privacy, even though it's a public space. And so I think we've accomplished that by adjusting the different sizes for the people. And then what happens when we walk in also, there's a low wall. How does this work? Okay. There's a low wall at the entry, about 36 to 42 inches, depending where you are, with this sloping ramp, that you can have overflows for people standing during a big event, or wheelchairs, extra wheelchairs. There's also room to set up chairs in here. So the space was designed to be flexible for multiple sizes, whether it's very private or our big holiday events, whether it's Memorial Day or it could do a 9/11 or something, or Veterans Day. With that being said, there's two memorial benches there, custom benches, and instead of laying them haphazardly around the park, I thought if we integrated them, because they're special also, into this, so the park isn't just this monument, but everything around it becomes part of it. The circle focuses on the monument, and that's a big deal with healing. People can see that from all aspects. When you come out of the building, when you're walking up. Our concern with the new Sheriff's Administration was, since this is at a higher level and we have perceived a lot of traffic here, on this back wall, we've used some perforated screens that are about 4 foot tall, just to give perceived enclosure. You can see through it. Everything's fine with that security-wise, but yet people won't feel like someone's right on their back. Very simple. And again, in response to what we've had to the existing planting, everything here would be lower and natural. We'd save the big trees here because they really set off the courthouse, those evergreen trees, and it actually provides our buffer. So when you walk down Main Street, you see, oh, here's the courthouse, and you really don't see the park yet till you get to the end where this tree is. So basically, it's like framing the courthouse, and then once you get by this tree, you see this open space under the aspens and this sunken park, and it opens up to the new entry. Because it's critical, since that entry is set so far back, that you have good visibility from the street. People shouldn't have to ask, where is this? We want to see it when we're walking down. As we walk around the memorial, we have some steps for overflow or some more privacy, some small spaces up here where people can sit. We were just talking about concrete benches with slanted backs. There's planting behind this, so that when you're in the meeting room down below, you look out and you see planting in the back of a planter and trees. So it's open and transparent, yet there's privacy there. The big thing that we did concerning the cutting through of the park, on our entrance here, this walkway, we put a low bench here. So you can come out of here, sit on benches for the overflow or for this, looking at the garden while you're waiting to go in. But as you see with this seat wall and the other benches with walls behind them, no one's cutting through this now. And that's where we are. Let me add a couple things. Everything that was there the language of the historic buildings nearby, and even the materials of the proposed new buildings can be integrated into this with our low wall, so that we still have, this is the Veterans Park, it's a memorial, it's a solemn space, but yet it ties into the civic nature of that square. It's a vest pocket park that has a special meaning, and I think having that special meaning shows the importance the county and the city sees in our veterans, that it's centrally located in that civic area. I think that shows a lot of respect. By accident, by Dan's good throw. So it's what.
And so let me ask, obviously the wrought iron fence is gone, and is that, at least in these drawings, is that to kind of differentiate this a little from the historic facility?
Well,
so it's not too cluttered now that there's these new components?
Yes and no. It didn't make it to these drawings, but on the plan, we have an option where we could put some bollards, and it's in the plan. These right here could be black wrought iron bollards. We thought it would be nice, since here's the roses and the wrought iron fence, to introduce little sections of the fence as the language. But what we did, we stepped our landscape back so it looks like an open space coming to here, because we want it to have its own identity, that it's a park, even though the space isn't that far, but yet we want to keep the historic language because we're so close to the courthouse.
Yes.
We don't want to just go black and white that it's different. We want to make a mild transition.
Okay. Thank you for answering all that.
Can I tag on to that? Because, that's of critical importance to me, was the continuation and the preservation of those roses along Main Street, along the sidewalk. And I see you have it from the bollards by the flagpole back, and I understand now what you're saying is that it may be just too much with the new design, and so maybe the bollards did reflect the historic wrought iron, but it's just, to me, what makes Veterans Park so special is walking down Main Street, going in through that pathway with the wrought iron and the roses all the way to the circular path once you get in there. That is kind of what always stands out to me in my memory of my years going to Veterans Park. So, I don't know, I'm kind of caught now looking at your new design, but I still kind of like those roses going all the way across.
Well, I do, as you said, I do have the roses, but they're stepped back. All these are roses. So
all those in
all this right
that
here.
planter.
So what we did is just open up the front of the park, like, so when they have the presentation of colors and they can come through the
Right.
the sidewalks a little
Still
wider.
have that
It's a
sentimental.
presentation, and what happened? I agree with you. The roses are very important, like Memorial Day, the poppies,
yeah.
the red is a very important color. So to emphasize that, I put them at the base of the wall.
And then you'd carry the wrought iron through at the ballards on the sidewalk side.
Right.
So you kind of are solving my dilemma in the same space.
Yeah.
We talked about it,
Okay.
so whether or not we have the right answer is
I-
still
you
a
know
topic,
what?
but we talked about your
I
concern.
think you have the right answer.
Yeah. And the bollards could also serve in the future. They can be made as a security element too, because the park is so open. We're in a civic area, so it has multifaceted uses or potential uses.
I think you've taken both of the points of greatest sentimental concern for me and addressed them.
No,
and I really appreciate that extra effort.
This is more than me just designing this and getting hired for this. My friend here, Colonel Merritt,
Hi, Colonel Merritt.
took care of my grandfather when he was in hospice. So I owed him this. And everything that means something to these guys means something to me.
Yeah. And before I go to George, I just want to make two really quick comments. I really appreciate this work, and I think it's stellar. And at the same time, we're all fortunate in knowing that we have plenty of time before we get to this component of construction of the new plaza, because it's going to be the last work done. We don't want anything damaged. We're going to need to box the actual memorial itself in some way to make sure there's no construction accidents, nothing falls on it. But there is quite a bit of time before it will be finalized and entered in upon. And I think there will be a need, and I say this after 20 some odd years in office, to go out to the broader public, but mostly more the broader veterans group. And I think you and Dan and others have done just a yeoman's job of representing this diverse set of interests. But to do a simple check-in is just a good step. And the example that came to me when I was thinking about it was St. Mary's. You know, you think about how strong a presence they have in the community and how well they work with their laity, is that the correct term, their congregation, and yet when any change is going to be made, people start really wanting to feel that they individually were involved or had a chance to weigh in. And so I wouldn't see it as something necessarily really changing, but I do think it will be important to have that. And you never know, sometimes people do come up with some good ideas, but it's nice to have the larger seal of approval of the so many people who are often involved in your services. So, George?
You know, when with this presentation and one before it, when I think about governmental facilities and I think about memorials, I also think about flags. And have we thought about flagpoles and where they would be? And I mean, that should be a simple thing, but has that been part of the conversation?
Yeah, the existing flagpole, the veterans decided that they'd like it to remain in its existing spot, and it's right there announcing the entry to the park.
Okay.
What about poles for any additional flags that the veterans may want to fly for specific events?
Memorial Day and Veterans Day, we fly those for the ceremonies.
Do we need a special holder?
Yeah, so we'll provide holes for
They'll
where
have
those would be.
something more secure that we can build into the park.
Right now, we room them up on the ground, but
Right.
we would probably need some permanent holders. Yeah, that's been suggested.
Because I remember it was so windy the last time everybody was hanging on to those flags for dear life.
And we did discuss, should there be, you know, some municipal buildings have 2 or 3, you know, the state flag and the American flag, and whether or not we should be redundant or try to put something back closer to the building. And the whole group felt like keeping that as existing was the right thing to do. Certainly there could be other opinions, but it was talked about. Did we want to do something different? And it was a conscious choice to leave it there.
Did we at some time fly the Colorado flag underneath the American flag on that flagpole? Have we ever?
I can't recall.
Dan, do you remember?
I didn't know whether you thought about even adding another flagpole just on the other side with the state flag, if that came up.
We present the POW flag on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, at the ceremony at the front.
I see Michael had a question or comment.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, because I really didn't understand it very well looking at it. So the presentation's made a big difference, and I'm glad to see you mention the memorial benches, because one of them is to my former mother-in-law, and I didn't want that to disappear. So
No way.
Yeah.
it seems to me the one of the difficulties of the park is that it is small and sheltered, and on cold days it's very cold there. And now that we have another building behind it, we're going to have even less light. So the idea of planting these trees there doesn't really appeal to me, because they provide shade, and most of the time we need light and warmth in that space, and that's difficult. That's one of my thoughts. And then the other thought is that typically people don't want to get too close to the ceremony. I don't know why. Some people stay on the sidewalk. They come to the sort of the southwestern quadrant of the park, and they don't actually enter into the park itself. And now that you have it sort of walled off, I'm not sure there's a way to get people into the park participating more than they do now. So that's a problem for me. And then the idea of concrete benches is not exciting at all.
Right.
Because those are cold and difficult to sit. And for some reason, everybody seems to be getting older every year that goes by.
That's a good thing.
And it's tough for people to sit on a concrete bench.
It's harsh, and we had images of wood, and there's some curved benches on there in wood, and we didn't. This isn't a final design by any means. This was just a litmus test to get us out there and see. I'm comfortable with these gentlemen. They've been very detailed in all the information and needs of the veterans, and now we're putting it out to the broader group to see what you guys think, and we certainly take in your
Well,
your information.
you talked about the large spruce trees. I mean, those essentially are almost as large as a house, and so those, if you start planting aspens in there, they get very large too, very large, and all of a sudden there's no light and no warmth in that area. It's always shaded. It always has dead leaves on the ground. It's that's a real problem.
Well,
So hearing you and not disagreeing with what you said, we did talk about that a little bit in terms of the plantings, and because the south-facing sun is going to hit our building, there was some discussion about this is going to be a warmer space given the glass materials that we have on that side of the building, and that'll reflect down into the park. Not disagreeing with
I
what
don't
you
know.
said, but
Also, interestingly enough, we had to move some memorials up to Smuggler Grove, and they were white marble. One of them is for Claire, whose benches here. And under aspen trees, that white marble turns black because of the sap that comes off aspen trees. And so I can't argue enough that having lots of trees there, the roses and low shrubs and flowering plants, early flowering plants for May, and late blooming plants, or at least plants that keep their leaves in November, that's wonderful. But these large trees, that memorial is a marble, and you don't want anything to stain that marble, so.
Yeah, and this is just a chance for feedback. We don't really need to respond back and forth on everything. It's going to keep going. I think those are excellent comments and observations, Michael. Maybe lilacs are part of the scenario. I don't know, if they kept trim low or
if they,
things.
those lilacs, oddly enough, that go along the alleyway between St. Mary's and the
They're beautiful.
City Hall are fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
So the light
Steve's up
and getting people to participate in the ceremony is a difficult. When I say participate in the ceremony, actually come in like a family. People have a hard time and want to sort of stay in the back. They don't want to have attention. So this is difficult. I think this makes it more difficult for them to go forward, but I don't know.
Steve?
Yeah, thinking about the points you brought up, Michael, I think a lot of the people will probably be standing on the walkway into the Plaza building. Even now, a lot of people are over there during ceremonies, and they'll be clear out to the street and out on the sidewalk. They do fill literally the whole park up, every available space, with people standing or sitting. Thinking about the trees, there are those in the community who don't even want us to remove the cottonwood trees that are there, which provide a huge amount of shade. And I don't see any way we could do the construction and keep those individual cottonwood trees there, but I think putting some sort of a tree, now whether it's a couple of cottonwood trees or the aspen trees, the aspen trees on our place are having a hard time, and it might not even be aspen trees in a couple of years that we would think of planting. It might be something else.
Right, and we discussed that in a meeting as an option because we were concerned about the windows of the sheriff and administration building, the addition behind it. When I did this layout, I also checked it on the architecture to make sure we were lined up with the structure of the building. And as Dave pointed out in one of our meetings, we're not sure what trees they're going to be at. We're just, again, throwing it out there. We thought with no trees, it would be a little harsh And the linearity of trunks reminds you you're in Aspen, why a lot of these veterans came here to heal. And we're totally aware of the maintenance issues of too many leaves. And that's why, it's really a small amount of trees. What trees they are yet, we don't know. But I hear what you're saying.
Then also, right now the park is kind of used as a picnic spot to a large extent because of the picnic tables out there. And this makes it a more special place to me. I've watched people go in who are obviously there because of the Veterans Memorial, and they'll read the signs and they'll stand there very quietly. And having the sitting spaces around, I think, is a really good addition to it, to give people a chance to sit and contemplate. I remember being at the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. last year, and I actually sat on the lawn because they didn't have benches right there, because I was thinking of my friend whose name was on the wall. And so this gives people a comfortable place to sit down and really sit and contemplate.
Well, thank you. And it's by no means an original idea. It's there's a lot of memorials that are circular. The circle's a powerful shape, but it's unique to our Aspen as how it works with the buildings and the people that are here and the memories of the people that have contributed to this. And so by combining all these, I think that we're into the right direction.
Okay, Patty?
Yeah, real quick. Two points. To Michael's point about, and so many of the veterans do, they even sit down on the stairs towards the parking lot. And I think a lot of those gentlemen, that's where they're comfortable, where they can hear the ceremonies that are going on and in their own space. And I think the opportunities back up against the wall and the bench that runs along the corridor, the entryway, will facilitate them still being in this space and having their own sense of privacy, their own thought process. The grade, the minimal couple of % grade, we aren't going to have drainage issues. We're going to area it because of snow melt, and we don't really want that to be an ice skating rink.
Well, we won't have problems because at the bottom of the slope, we'll take care of it with a drain, or even along the way, they have little slot drains. It's all designed with safety in mind because these aren't little kids anymore. They're teenagers.
I was going to say, I'd fall down enough, and that back parking lot becomes an ice skating rink. I think many staff members have experienced sliding through there, if not getting injured in there. So, just keep that in mind, because it does get shady there. But I think it's beautiful.
Okay, well, I think we may have jumped in with our comments and questions more quickly than we should have and not heard from Dan or Colonel Merritt. And so certainly let's open that up to your experience with the process or your thoughts on it or anything like that. And just turn those directional microphone towards the people speaking.
Right.
Feel free.
Rachel, turn yours a little because you probably pick up on it.
We've done a lot of vetting since December with the veterans, and got responses back I'd like to share with you. Because this is it.
Those around for you, Colonel.
Okay, all the way around the horn, please. In this whole vetting process since we started, the county and the planners have included the veterans as to what we wanted. And when it went out originally that this park would be the new park, many veterans expressed the idea that this is consecrated grounds. They do not want the memorial moved. There's a lot of materials in there that are Purple Hearts, metals that can't be moved. They did not want the sidewalk going through the memorial to the front of the new building. I have attended all the vetting sessions for the new sheriff's building, and this works well with the plans that we have here. Now, Wayne Stryker, I'll just tell you on those papers, Wayne Stryker was one of the designers of the memorial, and he is an input there. He speaks favorably of it. Dan, have you mentioned Chuck Cole?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Chuck, I guess, co-founder with me, 1985-ish. I saw him in Glenwood last weekend. Had a copy of the plans and said, I like it.
Good.
He thought it was great, so.
Then Sally Glenn and Hugh Roberts, who are chairman of the 4th of July parade, they always attend. They have some very good comments there. We have reached out to a number of the veterans, so we put the plans out to them so that they could comment on them, and they liked them. So we feel that Nancy Bouchard, who was one of the founders of the memorial in 1987, also responded. She likes the idea. She's always there. So we feel that we've gone out to the veterans community and gotten responses that there's a positive feedback for what has been discussed and presented to us. So we thank the commissioners for allowing us to put our input in and get the guidance. I will tell you that there's a movement out there that we more or less quelched, that if the memorial was moved, there would be a big protest movement, moved off that side or moved temporarily and not gotten back because of the consecrated to that feeling. But that has gone away because the county has said that we will let it remain where it is, protect it when the construction goes on, and then go forward. So these are for you to share, but we have vetted this with the veterans.
Okay, can I ask real quick, did you guys run anything by Kevin Cassidy? He was the gentleman that did all the stonework and the masonry for
No, we haven't. This is just per usual for our veterans to go out to let them know that the county has said that the memorial will remain in place for posterity, and it will not be trespassed with a sidewalk. So we are happy with what we've been told. That's a premise that we've presented to our veterans group.
Because I know that Kevin is he feels the sanctity of the space since he was involved in the construction and the burial of the mementos. And he's a friend, and so I'll just run it by just Kevin so he's aware of the fact that we're going to preserve his work at that great space.
Well, if I may put a plug in, from the very start of this whole process, Jody, John, Dave have been behind us 100%. Then we went out to the architectural type folks. Nick has been, I mean, this whole group is just, I can't express my feelings. They have been so supportive, helpful, creative, understanding. I'm just blown away, and I want to thank each one of them very much, because this is what we wanted, and thanks to them, this is what we're...
You know, I would say that the comments that you have before you, there's a lot of tweaking. We have the basic plan, and those are good comments about a place to put the flags. And there's been a lot of thought going into this because these people are always there. And we want to let you know the support from the veterans community for this memorial.
We're very appreciative of the outreach that you're doing on our behalf. And again, the best part is we have the luxury of some time to be able to make sure we feel all the needs have been accommodated and the little issues have been refined, as you said, the kind of finer points and fine tuning. And it is, of course, public land for the public of Pickens County, and so we do want to be able to check in with the broader public, mostly so they're not caught unawares when they start seeing changes, and that they understand that it's been vetted through the veterans groups, and perhaps anyone who's not yet had a chance to weigh in with any thoughts or comments, we get to hear from that. But I don't think that's going to sidetrack the greater momentum or the broad thrust that we have going on here.
But then we would anticipate at some point that this would be presented to the public for comment at an open meeting.
Yeah, and because then we from there we then finalize the contract to construct. So it's just part of the process. And but this is great work to my mind, and really appreciate that. Other board questions or comments, Steve?
You know, some of the designs of the new building we were looking at, they had the Veterans Park with just a round circle and no trees, no vegetation, no nothing. And it's really nice to see the rendering of, you know, what it could look like with the memorial and the benches and vegetation in there. With
This plan takes advantage of that big hump in the back. We don't know if it's a big oil storage thing, but that area is not being used at the present, but going backwards, that will be moved out and we can make it larger and better.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Just personal thanks to both of you two for the extra hours and for certainly showing up with our approvals with the city to move this project forward. It really made a difference.
You're welcome. The Veterans Committee.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for the roses.
Okay.
So just to be clear, so direction to us would be to proceed with setting up some sort of more public outreach that will work together
I
on.
think after you've had a chance to even consider these new comments,
Yeah.
which, they seem to be dated Monday. I don't know if our design architects had a chance to look at those and look
Things
at
are
some of the
moving
pros-
fast. Things
Yeah.
are moving
Yeah.
fast with us.
And some of the pros and cons issues that Michael brought up, perhaps a few before you had walked in, Colonel Merritt, that aspens may stain marble.
I heard that,
And
yeah.
that cold, cement benches can be pretty cold. And so I don't know what the other options are there, but we'll take a look at that. And I did want to ask, the trees you're showing in the back, you were saying those would all be aspens. Is that correct?
He doesn't know.
Or not, you don't know yet?
No, for this drawing, we just drew it the same, not knowing what they are.
And I don't have any, stake in the ground type of issues, but the left corner to me is where we have the really nice spruce and pines, and I could see one in that corner or something like that would, again, kind of highlight the courthouse building and be consistent with what's been there, but that's just me, and that's just something to consider.
Yeah, I think this gives you an idea,
Yeah.
not necessarily aspen trees, but something that
Something
Yeah,
deciduous.
I just think something that has a little green in the winter is always attractive and keeps it from looking a little too barren. Any other thoughts from the board or things?
Looks
you'd like-
beautiful.
Okay, so you have all of our thanks.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Now we're back to Jody on the discussion of the library roof. Jody, are you going to have a PowerPoint too? You do? Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I think I'll go ahead and stay here. And let me ask the board, we're a few minutes ahead of schedule. Would you like to take a 5-minute break before going into this one? Or okay.
Steve's on his way.
Yeah, I think we'll just take a really quick little 5-minute break while Jody resets up. Thank you. supplemental review for the library roof. So please take it away and just introduce yourselves for the public record.
Hi, I'm Kathy Chandler. I'm the county librarian.
I'm Jody Smith. I'm the facility superintendent.
And Connie Baker, the budget director.
Thank you.
So today we're before you to talk about the library roof replacement project. If you recall, over the past several years, probably about every year, I come to the Board of County Commissioners and request funding to repair and replace the soffits. The majority of that is on the west side and the north side of the building, which is the alley facing Red Mountain, and then the building facing Mill Street. And from the pictures, I'll jump right ahead here and just kind of show you some of the damage that we've been experiencing. And I guess I'd want to start off with is that we just finished a major renovation in addition to this building. And during that process, we had in our scope of work to once again repair these soffits. And when we went in and did an additional investigation, we hired a third-party inspector to come in and really find out what the problem was. Over the years, we've been hearing that, that damage is just because of condensation, and then another year somebody else will tell it was something else, and it's been going on for a long time. And last year when I came to you with money requesting fixing this soffit area, you guys asked me to fix this once and for all. And so that's why we're here. What we did is with that third party is he found extensive problems up behind the eaves and the soffit. So up here in this first one, you can see where the problems are, is that we end up with these huge icicles, and you can see even in this spot here that these icicles are not coming from the soffit. They're way behind, and they're actually coming out of the from the decking. What's happening is the ice is building up underneath the underlayment. The membrane is compromised. It can't be repaired. We'll have to replace it. And then there's also a lot of damage to the plywood decking that the membrane will sit on. That is saturated in many, many areas. And we also have found rust and other damages under the building. And so, we're
Under, you mean in the ground?
No, in the building.
Okay, under that area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, on the roof.
Okay.
So you can see some of those pictures in here, and these are a little bit hard to see in here, but you can see that they've got some pourable patching in some of these where they, instead of patching it in appropriately, they poured a sealer around these metal posts, and what that created was a lot of pockets where water sits, seeps in, and has caused the damage. And again, this soffit damage has been going on all over. The east side doesn't have a problem anymore because we ripped that off when we put the addition on there. So that's not a problem. But you can see here how the depth of where that goes in the metal fascia. And part of the problem that we found out, and this is the membrane that's compromised. We have buckling under there. The fencing was compromised. The test cuts, this is a terrible picture. It's hard to see on the screen. But again, it's the saturation of the plywood. And of course, then here's some rust in here that we're seeing, which ultimately will damage the interior of the building. And one of the things that we thought, and I think we talked to you early on when you said, let's get this fixed, was that we're really open to additional damage inside the building, and we've just spent all this money and time making it a really awesome asset for us, and we didn't want to go there again. So with that, again, you can see saturation and staining on the wood and on the steel beams. So what we did is we were able to get Pi Engineering, who was our third-party inspector. He came in, gave us the full report. They've given us we've figured out what the design is, what the product is. They recommended so what the roof that we're talking about is strictly the tiled roof. That's the 12 feet. I can't remember what the dimensions are, but it's from the edge up to the parapet and then all the way around the building, except for the east side. So we'll be pulling all of that tile off. We're pulling the ice and shield, the membrane, the plywood off, rebuilding that and putting the system back together. And the new system is it's not a tile roof like what we have now. It is more of it's the same material that we use kind of on the flat roofs. It's more of a TPO rubber roofing, and it has ribs in it. So it looks exactly like a metal roof. Instead of going with metal where we end up punching a lot of holes in the roof, this system will actually, it's fastened through glues and that kind of thing.
Rubber sealant.
Yeah, so that we don't have to put holes and penetrations into the building, and they'll work around the snow fence.
It's a textured membrane roof.
Right. Yeah. And so they have that at the hospital. The Mountain Rescue Cabin used it on part of their roof, and you cannot tell the difference. So the library board really looked at that solution. That was because we did look at metal. We looked at taking off the tile and building the slope of the roof up. That was part of our biggest problem, is that the tile system, the EcoStar, was not designed for the slope that we have. So we could have, and we talked about this at length, is pull off all the tile, build up the roof, and then reuse that product. But again, now we're putting additional holes into the new membranes, and it's not really going to save us any money, and we still don't have a warranty. So by going with this new system, we get our warranty. It's designed, we know that it's going to work. It's a proven material that's also in the community now. Steamboat has a lot of it, so it's been used in the mountain communities, such as our current climate. So the Board of County Commissioners, as you guys said, please fix it. The library board vetted this, and this is our recommendation to fix it. It is coming in at $490,000 to do this full solution, and I have Connie here to talk about how those numbers work.
It's just a quick question, Jody. The materials that you'll be taking off, will they be recyclable?
We haven't really gotten that far yet to figure out, but it is a recycled tire material that we're taking off, so we will try to get them recycled somewhere.
What about
Or
the
get
tiles?
somebody, the roofer, to take them and reuse them somewhere else.
Right, yeah. It seems like they should be able to be reused somewhere.
Yeah.
And the tiles?
Maybe reused on playhouses, but you can't really reuse a used roof product and the
Sheds or
a
barns?
shed or a
Yeah.
playhouse, but
Not a house, no.
not a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Jody. So this membrane is good because it's a solid membrane, but you're still going to put avalanche guards up.
We are.
So you're still going to penetrate it.
Yeah, and so there is a detail in the specifications about how that will be put in and how the membrane will go around it. It's not like we'll put it on top of the membrane. The membrane will be built around it, and there's
So
details.
you
in it.
install the avalanche guard first,
Yep.
and then roof around it, and somehow flash
Yep.
those penetration.
Yeah, and this is an entire new gutter system. This is new snow melt heat tape and a new snow fence along with the roofing system. So this will be,
A new roof.
yeah, and even the soffit, we're doing a metal ventilated system rather than this drywall stuff that we've been using over the years.
So there's no way to get away from gutters and heat tapes, because that seems like that's always a problem, isn't it?
I mean, in this climate, I mean, we don't feel like we would ever want to do that, because then we would be up there trying to push that snow off. The thing I like about this product is that it is also, we're going with a dark gray color, pretty much what's up there, and it's slippery, so it should slide off better because everything will be built properly and sealed properly. So it should shed off, and we do put the heat tapes on a timer so they only work when they're needed. We don't keep them on all night, so we let them work in conjunction with the sun. And so there's sensors and timers that you can put on those so that they work effectively and efficiently.
Steve?
There's a new design on heat tape that I can leave this brochure with you. I've looked at it some, and
Okay.
I'll
Pick it up.
it doesn't have the zigzag heat tape, which doesn't last, but it just is something that slides up under the roofing and then heats just along the edge with just one band. And Brian Paul is familiar with this, and I think it's something worth looking at as a possibility. And it's something that you don't even have it on a timer; it just stays on all the time, and it uses less electricity than the normal heat tape and works better.
Okay.
So it'd be something that worth considering anyhow.
And I have talked with that gentleman and Brian Paul, and I know that system is on City Hall, and I've seen how that's producing, and so we'll definitely look at that again with Pi. And the other piece of this is that this contract with the 490 includes the design and a third-party inspector, so that he comes out and checks every 2 weeks to make sure that or every week, every 3 days, whatever it takes to make sure that this system is installed per his specifications. He did this with the waterproofing out here on the building, and he was out here all the time. I mean, I was really impressed with the detail, how many times he made him rip off the waterproofing and do it over until he liked it. And so I think that was the prudent effort that the board had asked us for, is make sure that we're doing this right, doing it well, and doing it for a really long time.
Thank you. And let's take a moment and go into the budget aspects of this.
Yes. If you'll remember, in 2015, the board approved a $1 million loan from the general fund to the library in order to help cover the cash flow of the library construction project. It turned out that with the timing of donations coming in and the timing of construction invoices being paid out, that loan was not necessary. The library fund made it through 2015 without needing any money from the general fund. So as you're looking at the fund balance numbers presented in this supplemental request, just know that there has been no transfer of money from the general fund. The idea was that the library would then pay back through 2016 and 2017. And so as of today, that has not been necessary. Their cash flow has been good. It does leave them with a tight fund balance. And so as we were looking at this budget request, we really looked at where they have savings this year, what their expenses are coming in at, where their donations are year to date. And Kathy and I spent a good amount of time going through all of the numbers to make sure that we were looking at good fund balance numbers as we're projecting 2016. And so we are projecting that the library will end 2016 with a fund balance of almost $600,000, $593,000. With this budget request of $490,000, that brings the fund balance down to a projected year end of $103,000, which is not huge, but it still keeps them in the positive. In addition to this $103,000 fund balance that would be remaining at the end of the year, they do still have their Tabor balance, which is $114,000, and the Library Capital Reserve Fund also has a balance of $371,000. So should there be something unexpected in our projections or in donations that are still trickling in. There is the Library Capital Reserve Fund that we could move money from in order to cover this. But just so that you know that no money has been transferred over from the general fund, they've been able to just do it with their own balance. For 2000,
But before you go further, just a quick question. Why not take half from the capital reserve fund and then half from the operating fund? Because it seems like a capital reserve type of issue.
we could do it that way. They have just wanted to keep that intact as they can. It's not a necessary transfer unless we see that the library fund balance might be getting too close to zero, and then we would move it in that direction. In looking at the 2017 budget for the library, we are projecting that they'll have a surplus of about $200,000. And so we're anticipating that that fund balance, even though it's getting down a little low now, we're anticipating it's going to grow in 2017 and then going forward in the 5-year plan.
One other question related to budget and the various funds. And I realize clearly that you've only been in the new library and the renovated library for a short period of time now, but do the projections on staffing seem to be on track of not needing to have more personnel because of the additional space, or how the payrolls will be going and the future expense of the library?
The staff has been very stretched in order to man all of the service points in the building, but we are trying to hold the line for a couple of years to continue on the goals that we had for the project. We've kind of been paying as we go for the whole project, and that's one reason that we took this roof portion of the project, just cut it off and said this is not going to be part of the renovation project. And then as Jody did her process of discovery, we realized it needed to happen before winter struck again. But we had to reuse all of the old staff office furniture in a newly designed staff office space where it really didn't fit very well, and so we'd like to kind of carry forward with the program of finishing the renovation and letting the staff have better furniture to work on also before we start looking at upping any staff numbers. We've also, I don't know if you remember, but when we first started this project many years ago, we borrowed money that we had in our minds set aside for employee housing. It wasn't required, but we were trying to participate with the rest of the county with their purchases of employee housing, so we'd like to repay that too. And so we want to honor our capital replacement schedule, and then we will be looking at staffing requirements, and I would anticipate that in the out years we will be asking for permission to hire some more staff, just because there's so many places in the building where you need to have people in the public service desks.
But not until that fund balance has started to rebuild itself better, and you are anticipating staying within your existing mill levy.
Yes, and I think the general government recommendations are that you have 15% of your operating budget in reserve, and we certainly do not have that now. So we're kind of skating on the edge, but we were really pleased that we didn't have to borrow money. But we also were really pleased that you guys were willing to loan us some. Thank you.
Thank you for that detailed explanation. I appreciate it. Other board questions about this, or a signal of support to authorize the supplemental request and expenditure? Okay, Steve says yes. Patty, you?
Yeah, I think we've needed to move forward with it for quite some time now.
Okay, George? Michael, more
Can you
questions?
just explain it to me? So just explain it to me one more time. You're asking for
permission to expend some of their remaining fund balance out of their operating fund to fix the roof.
Right, this is library money.
So they're just asking for library, so we're not talking about the county general fund.
No.
We're talking about the library fund.
No, this is just appropriating the money to do the roof project.
I think the conversation, Michael, it's all the library fund. The library fund's operating balance is going to get fairly tight, but there is plenty in terms of the capital reserve fund balance that we don't see an issue, and we see surpluses in the future. So we'll have a tight year. So if there is an unexpected event at the library, we may be coming back for some general fund cash flow again, just like we did during the project. We think there's a low risk of that. So I think that may have been the confusion in the discussion. This is all library
The
funds.
discussion started out with they haven't spent the money we were going to loan them.
Right. So right now we basically what we're saying is we did not have to put that $1 million in. So this request would not affect our financial plans in the general fund.
So what is the warranty on the roof then?
Oh, do you remember?
I don't.
I think it was like, it's 15 or 20 years.
15 or 20 years.
It wasn't a 50-year warranty.
And then, so the inspector that we get who supervises the installation, what risk does he take on the deal? Or is he's saying to us or to the library it is done properly,
Right.
and therefore we will be able to rely on the warranty that the roof material people offer us.
Right, and so what his job and role would be then is if we did have a problem, we would give that to him and he would chase it down with the warranty folks. And we will have a workmanship warranty for the 1 year. So the installers will warrant us 1 year for the work they do.
So if they have a faulty sealant around
Yeah.
one of the avalanche things, that's only lasts a year.
Right.
So
Unless we put a 2-year warranty on that,
Right.
it would be with Katie helping us.
so
get it.
it seems to me we actually need to go out farther in some way, at least on an inspection basis, to make sure that the roof is operating as planned for the next 5 years. And whether or not we extend a contract to this inspector or whatever, I think we should consider that. Because the problem with roofs is nobody ever goes up there.
Well, and I think one of the things that we're doing differently in facilities is that we are scheduling 11-month walks now. So like with this library, we have an 11-month walk scheduled with FCI and their people so that we and our inspectors, Pi, will be there to really look at everything to make sure that that system, everything is in place and still working as designed before we go, oops, it's 1 year and 1 day. And so we'll do that with this roofing system as well. And I actually love the idea of having that third party come up and just at 11 months and then maybe, we have them come up once a year and really look
Because
at
the
those
problem is that the holes can be tiny,
things. Correct.
but the time is great.
Yes.
And so even though the hole is tiny, if you let it go for 2 years,
Right.
you've ruined something underneath. And so you really need to keep on top of it. And nobody wants to go up there. You have to hire somebody to go up there.
Okay. So everyone is in agreement, and I just would like to congratulate you on the success of your fundraising efforts on behalf of the board. I received one of the mailers again recently, and you're closing that last bit, and I think it's been a great chance for the community to take a lot of pride of their involvement and their contribution to this great institution. So thank you for that. And I may have created the confusion by asking when I met with John yesterday to let us know the status of, quote, the loan that we had approved, just to make sure that we were all looking at all the same numbers and there wasn't any outlying debt or repayment costs that had to come out of out years. So that's really very, very good.
And I'd just like to make a note to Jody. Just when we thought you didn't need another project. We like keeping you busy because you do such a great job.
You do, okay. Well, thank you very much, and will we be able to have this supplemental approved at our meeting tomorrow so that we can get going with this while the weather is still holding?
We will go ahead and initiate the project and bring it back in a quarterly.
Okay, okay.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that brings us to the review of future agendas. I think I'll move back to the other seat now. And we'll go from there.
I show a break in here.
We just had one. Do we need another
Oh,
one?
We had
but
like a
not the full 15-minute break. What would you guys like? Would you like to break for a little bit?
10-minute break?
Yeah, okay, let's take the 10-minute break and come back. Thank you.
I've got so good at not drinking iced tea, especially after reading the label of the high sugar fructose. I went, oh, geez. And then I got home and it was buzzing and had the worst headache. And I just, even from this tea, I already have a headache. I'm just getting to be a caffeine weak person.
Yeah, I mean, I need the caffeine sometimes.
I can't, it just gives me a headache.
You know, I get more used to drinking just straight caffeine.
You were such good friends with my boss.
For tuning in today. It is Tuesday, September 13th, and you've turned into the work session of the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners. We're going to begin our review of the future agendas. John?
Yeah, so a couple of items for the board. First, we had scheduled both a joint meeting with the City of Aspen on October 4th, as well as a prep meeting, and I was just looking for, I think it's on the 20th right now. We have heard back from the city that the October 4th date is not going to work for them, and they have proposed November 15th for a meeting time, and so I think what we'll do is work on rescheduling for that, both November 15th and prep time.
Okay. Well, that happens to all of us every now and then, and they did make time the last time, so.
And then we also been in touch with our neighbors over in Lake County about getting together, and they actually had proposed a time to meet in Twin Lakes. It's pretty quick here. They have proposed meeting Monday, September 19th, so I believe that is next week.
Monday.
And at Twin Lakes from 9:30 to 11.
I have a meeting from 8 to noon.
I'm not in town.
Rachel's out of town.
So that's not going to work. I see three heads nodding.
And I think
no.
the restaurant's closed in Twin Lakes.
Well, we're getting a picnic.
Yeah.
So we'll work on another time
Okay.
to get over there before the pass closes.
If at all possible. If not, we'll just have to do it in the spring. As Patty has mentioned earlier, I think we are looking to a joint meeting with Snowmass coming up, and perhaps the meeting within our valley with Garfield County is going to be more important at this point than getting together with Lake at this point in the year.
Okay. That's really all I had right now in future agendas.
I have
Patty.
one quick thing. Are we going to have a pre-EOTC discussion? Because it's not scheduled. EOTC meeting is on the 20th of October. So can we sneak something in there? I don't know if we'll have an agenda or have any idea, but
We'd need a prep for that.
yeah, it would be nice.
George?
September 27th, we have our annual meeting with CDOT in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we have a discussion about the Independence Pass overnight discussion. It seems like it would be good if we were able to have some of that discussion while CDOT is here.
It's a very good thought.
Oh. Yeah, maybe we can switch the executive session around, and what we're looking at there, just to remind the board, is we're looking at some options, including the LiDAR and maybe a chicane to prevent the overlength vehicles, or at least further discourage the overlength vehicles from using Independence Pass. And so I wonder if it wouldn't be good for us to at least have that presentation in the morning prior to CDOT coming, and then you guys can bring those options up during your joint meeting.
Let me suggest that we also check with CDOT first and see if the one personnel who would be most involved with that sort of item could come earlier, or if they could stay later if we end up having it afterwards. You know, it's obviously not going to need that full complement of folks that they always bring up for their annual meeting.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, perhaps earlier, because if we have this information, then we could do a little more lobbying while we have
I agree.
the commissioner here and some of their top staff.
Okay, that's a really good suggestion, George. Let's see if we can line that up somehow to work together. Michael?
Really, all we need to do is to know if CDOT permits that kind of device on their roads.
And we have been working with CDOT on both of these options, the chicane and the LiDAR. I think the other piece that we have been working with them on that may benefit from some additional board discussion with our CDOT reps is we're also looking for funding, since this is a state highway that we're trying to solve for. And so we certainly have been working with CDOT staff on both of these options, and I think have a good idea where they stand. I think funding is going to be the question at the end of the day.
Well, if we said 50-50, they'd probably go for it, wouldn't they?
Hard to say. I don't know, Michael. I think right now there has been talk about some funding, particularly for the LiDAR-based system that measures the vehicles and customizes a pop-up message based on length and such. They do think they may have some funding for that, and so I think the more we can keep that front and center, because as we know, CDOT funding is thin.
I know in Switzerland they have tank traps that come out of the road, so we could maybe install some of those.
That may not be in the funding, we'll see. Yeah.
Well, that and, whether there would be any of that motor photo type of thing at the end of the LiDAR, because I don't want someone to just ignore the pop-up sign. And, at that point, if it's triggered that there's a vehicle that size, we should see what it can do to capture the license plate if someone proceeds past that point.
Just a real quick note, I do think we need to thank them, though. There were traffic signs during the Rockfall closure on both sides of the pass about trucks. So they put up a little more effort to keep the trucks.
And it would be good just to get an update. It could be in a written form from the Sheriff's Department, how many citations they've issued this summer and tolls and things like that for vehicles. So we have some of those factual information.
Great. Very good. Other comments on future agendas?
Nope.
Being none, we will move on to the next item. Thank you very much for that agenda. And we're now going into a telecommunications update.
Do you have everyone, Phyllis? Are we?
Is Kara coming in too, or?
No, Kara's still in Basalt. Hi, Phyllis Mattias, Assistant County Manager.
And
go ahead.
Drew Peterson, Communications Project Engineer.
And Jeff Kruger is in the middle of moving the 911 phone system today, and Kara's in Basalt. So we're doing the update. Actually, Drew's going to do the update since he's been the project engineer on the mountaintop sites, and has the update from Jeff.
And so there's no decisions needed today. It's just an update on progress.
Correct.
Thank you.
I don't know how fast this will be. So I guess I'll jump right into it, covering for Jeff Kruger as far as 911 dispatch update. So as you guys know, there was a flooding incident in the basement of the jail where we had our entire server room housing all of our equipment. Some of it was damaged, some of it was not, but it was decided between the Sheriff Department, the Con Board, dispatch, and pick and staff that we needed to move immediately to the new facility at North 40. Luckily, all the grounding was completed before the incident happened, so we were able to connect our equipment, and all of the moving was done on August 25th, and mostly completed on August 25th or 26th, but was not fully operational. There were still a couple additional minor things to be completed. Most of the I've got his report right here to make sure I'm not missing anything. So all of the radio and comms, we have partial operation on 5 consoles in the new facility. We got a rack we borrowed from Garfield County to get us partially online. I believe today they're finishing up the transfer for that, so should have full radio functionality after today, I believe. We have a Casidian rack that was not damaged by the flood, which was left in the basement of the jail. I believe they're also trying to move that today, and by the end of this week, to my knowledge, it should be mostly completed. We had a server that was completely destroyed by the flooding. A backup server was found and overnighted and installed at North 40. There are 4 fully functional positions at North 40 for dispatch. And the auto logging server was not damaged in the flood and is still in the basement of the jail. That as well is going to move shortly, but everything is going along. It was, very last minute emergency situation, but everything worked out well. The system is up and online and things are looking good. So kudos to Jeff Kruger and all the team.
But before you move on, Drew, I just want to note for the public and for the board what really a monumental task this was to move the dispatch center entirely 28 days ahead of schedule due to a flood. We were worried about keeping on our schedule of 28 days, and so Phyllis, thank you, and a lot of thanks to Jeff and the comms staff, our contractors and Pro Velocity and Bits. There was a really, really tremendous team effort to move the comm center in such a way that we did not have an interruption in service despite the unexpected cascading of water into all the critical electronics there too. So that was a really great effort.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a huge effort, so they really kind of miraculously came out on top. So we're very glad for that.
And our board can only second those comments behind John. I think we tried to send some messages during the time period. But that reminds me of something I should ask that I forgot to ask during our building layout discussion. Obviously, the communication servers and all that has now moved out of the jail. Will we have any remaining communications or computer systems that are vulnerable within the jail after the new buildings are built, or are they going to be in the new buildings?
We have a couple. Actually, the goal is to get them moved into the data center that's built onto the side of the jail, or into the dispatch center where we have another data. I don't know if you call it closet. It's not really a data center. But we are in the process of getting all the critical systems moved out from under threat of water there. Yeah.
George.
Just as an aside, I thought when we had our tour of the jail facility about a month ago that we talked about the
Fire sprinkler
the
system.
fire sprinklers, and they were talking about how to insulate them, protect them, so that would not or could not happen in terms of an inmate being able to tear that off.
So this was an old one. This was one of the older style that had not been replaced, and typically an inmate like this one would not have been held in the room that they're being held in, but we had a detox going on in the room they'd typically be held in. So we're looking at finishing out that replacement of those heads, and there's also what they call a pre-action system, which requires two heads to be triggered before the water actually flows. So we're looking at both the flush heads and the pre-action system to prevent that kind of damage in the future.
Thank you. And now we'll let you get back to your presentation, but we just want to make sure the rest of the computers were safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so as far as the actual upgrading to the digitally trunk radio system throughout the county, the three major places sites we're looking to upgrade are on Loge Peak, on Williams Hill, and in the town of Snowmass Village. You can't see very well on the projector behind you because it's just light in here, but the construction on top of Loge is complete as far as assembling the tower. There you can see the projected what we expected it to look like and what it actually does look like in real life. It is not loaded with any antennas at this point. We're still working with our contractor trying to finalize some additional work in hauling conduit to get our cables to the top, installing antennas, installing our equipment in the SKICO facility building. But the tower is assembled. It looks very good in my opinion, but just one man's opinion.
Can I ask, is that on the bottom photo, is that to the left a tall tower? Is that tower,
Yeah,
am I imagining something, or is there something?
There is still a tower there. So originally there was a tripod where the platform currently is,
Right.
and that guide wire tower right there. That currently houses the U.S. Forest Service antenna as well as the SKICO antenna. We just need a temporary place to put them until we had all of the conduit and cabling.
So it's gone.
Yeah. So we just transferred to that tower, and that will be up there until we have capability to transfer everything to the platform, at which point it will also be removed.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we're working on an agreement with the ski company. They're providing space in their ski patrol building in the basement. Built us a room there that we will then add generator and air to. and we're working on an agreement with them to get that figured out. We also have had our little shack where we had a different communication site removed, which was one of the requirements of the Forest Service, and Ski Company did that for us. I think they just lifted it with a piece of equipment and hauled it down to the merry-go-round. And we'll be taking the antenna or the tower, I guess, or it's really a pole that's in that location. So the Forest Service is pleased that we're taking all of these scattered locations off of the mountain, and there'll just be that one location now on the top of Loge Peak. When you get off of the Loge lift, when you look up to the right, that's the peak that this is sitting on. The mousetrap kind of falls between the lift and that hill. Sometimes you see kids hiking up this hill. We're thinking about what we might need to fence off the entrance on the platform so people don't think it's a viewing platform once it has antennas on it this winter. But we'll deal with that. But the hard winter stuff was done. The contractors did an amazing job putting together a pulley system to get from where Loge Lift is up to that hill.
Okay.
So.
And in town of Snowmass Village, we'll be putting up a 40-foot monopole tower behind their town hall. That's also coming along tomorrow. An IGA will be brought in front of the board and resolution in terms of operation of and maintaining that tower, but won't have any effect on budget. And Williams, we're hashing out a couple last-minute details in terms of fire safety, but everything's coming along.
Very good. Other board questions? I guess we just have to keep our fingers crossed on the weather. When are the expected completions of those last two?
Right now, we're waiting on steel delivery for Town of Snowmass as well as the IGA to come through. End of September is when we're expecting the steel to be delivered. And with the construction, once everything gets rolling, we're hoping to be done by the end of October. We have until December 1st to get everything done by rules with migration patterns with the elk. So.
Okay.
And how soon will your fingers be healed?
Hopefully soon.
Dear. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, we'll go on to our next item.
Great, thanks for
Thank
coming
you
in.
very much. We now turn to board open discussion. John?
Yeah, and this is an item we should have had on your agenda for open discussion, but Janice had requested about 10 minutes or so to provide a motor vehicle update. So I apologize that was not on, but
Okay.
I had warned you last week that I'd be here every Tuesday for the next month.
Okay, we appreciate that.
So Janice Voss, Caudill, Picking County Clerk and Recorder, and Shelley Popish, who is our Picking County Motor Vehicle Manager. So we wanted to spend maybe 10 minutes with you just to give you an update on what's going on in the world of motor vehicle.
Okay.
So I thought what we'd do is just talk a little bit about the move, where we're at again. We'd like to go over what the activity is, what the counts are, and where we're at with motor vehicle transactions. And then, coming down the road is we're doing a huge computer conversion. So we wanted to go over that with you, so you know what's happening. As you know, motor vehicle, I think, in my opinion, is one of the departments that probably have the most interface with our community, because everybody needs to come in and register their vehicle annually, somehow, some way. So we have quite a bit of contact with our community. And as a reminder to the community, the Motor Vehicle Department has moved to the Vectra Bank, which is at 534 East Hyman. And we have in as much as we have advertised in the paper, on the radio, social media, Pickin' Weekly, in addition to signs, Shelley's telling me people are still complaining that they don't know where we're at.
Yeah.
So we've reached out to Pat in public relations, and in as much as we're advertising now that the administrative offices are moving down to Basalt, we asked her to please include with that also, along with that where we're moving. So,
I have to tell you, I saw someone pull up in front of the old building the other day, and I just said, "Oh, well, they've moved." And he goes, I know that. I've actually been to the new office. I just forgot.
I've had people do that to me.
Old habits
The
are
old
just hard
habits.
to break, but I really appreciate the additional outreach. And when you send the motor registration cards out, you're highlighting that difference, I'd
Well, we
imagine.
do have our new address on the front of the card, and we're also including on the back of the card our email addresses and also that we have moved. So just to let people know that we definitely are in a different place.
We're busy. We're on automatic pilot, aren't we?
And then before we know it, we'll be telling them we've moved back.
Right.
It's a good thing we're only 2 blocks away, so they can scoot over.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go over also the counts. Our counts with registration and the other activity in the department are as high as they were in between 2000 and 2006. And in history, I think over the last 20 or more years, we're at a high right now. So our revenue is incrementally increasing each year as it relates to motor vehicle transactions, and it's strong, just incrementally strong. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that it's steady and strong. With that, though, we also have staff capacity issues. Shelley can explain our heavy seasons.
Our heavy seasons typically are the end of May through August, and then again the end of November through February. We have lines. We've been extremely busy. Always people in line. It's probably the busiest I've ever seen it.
So that we had a conversation this morning, and Shelley turned around and says, I've been here 20 years. I've never seen lines like this. It just is, and we're trying to figure out why or what's going on, but our counts are up and steady. So, it's stressing our staff throughout the summer, and then it'll pick up again this winter.
And is that people doing new registrations who need to come in
I was
person?
just gonna ask that.
Or just people, when they get their mailed-in notice, decide to come in person?
All of the above, for sure.
All of the above.
Yeah.
So that's my question. Can we not somehow advertise or let people know that they can do so much of this business online now?
Again, it's on the back of our card. It's
Yeah,
on the
but I think
website,
we need to
and-
emphasize that more if we're having that, because I don't see it as something we can right now look at increasing staff levels. I think we need to increase the use of the new programs we put into place.
Yeah.
So I can work with Pat, don't stand in line, go online.
Yeah, that
We've moved.
Yeah, that would be great, that people can do things online.
Don't look
That's-
for us, go online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be great.
Very good.
Okay.
Don't stand in line, go online.
Like that one, John?
I like that one.
So I wanted to let you know where we're at with that. Also, give you an update on the Department of Revenue Motor Vehicle Division is in the first year of a 3-year conversion. And we were laughing. I'm going to share this with you anyway. We were laughing because how old is the system we have? It's from 1980s. My God, it's technology and it's 30 years old. So our joke this morning was, don't you decipher that in dog years? So is that not 210 years in technology terms? Right? So there's going to be a conversion going on with the motor vehicle division. The driver's license is completing their conversion in February 2017. In turn, what will happen is we'll start right in with the title and registering division. Right. So next summer, we're starting with that. So then moving forward, in January of 2018, Shelley's going to be involved in Train the Trainer classes. She will also, in March and April, between 4 and 6 years, 4 and 6 years, 4 and 6 weeks, I did it. Feels like 4 and 6 years. 4 and 6 weeks, she'll be spending her time doing acceptance testing with the new system. So she's going to be busy with that as well. So now we're looking at our increased demand and then the conversion. So there will be a strain on the department. After that, April and May, our staff will be conducting online training classes. So we'll have to pull them from the counters and online training with staff. And then we anticipate, but we're not sure, that we may have to close the department for maybe half a day or day to send our staff to training, because the conversion will take place then in August of 2018. So just a heads up on this. So I may be asking for additional support in next year's budget just for limited term to help with this picture I'm giving, to help get through that.
And Janice, you've told us before, but most of your computer systems are so old, they're classic black screens with blue type on them.
Green screens.
Blue screens, yeah.
All spaced.
I think it's about time to upgrade this system.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
Yeah.
We run several major computer systems, and I can say over 8 different softwares to support all our departments. So technology is us with that.
210 years old.
Yeah, dog years. Dog years, 210 years old. So, So that gives you a snapshot of what's going on in the motor vehicle department. We're strong, revenues are strong, activity's strong, and we're looking for conversion. With the conversion with this new system, we're actually excited about it because we're hoping it'll bring more efficiencies. So then we aren't looking at bringing more staff on, but creating more efficiencies with new systems.
Very good. Board members, any questions? Just since you're here, Janice, on TV, how do people double-check their voter registration for the upcoming election?
Double check, triple check. Important to check your registration now. Go online to pickandvotes.com, and it will link you right into the state system, and you can double check to make sure you got your residence is correct. If you want us to mail a ballot to you because you're a student or you're a snowbird, we will mail your ballot to wherever you tell us. So now is the time, because in about 3 weeks we're going to be working with our vendor to set up the addressing for the drop of the mail ballot on October 17th.
Okay, thank you. So, important election. Everybody make sure they are registered at the correct address so you get your mail ballots.
Right.
Can I ask a site?
Please.
If you live in Garfield County or Eagle County, can you still access that same site? Because I have people from other counties asking me, and I'm not sure what their individual counties
Goes to
do.
the same link. Actually goes Go Vote Colorado. Same link.
Go Vote Colorado. Thank you.
If you're new and you don't have a driver's license, et cetera, we have a link for an application. Okay. You can print out the application and send it to us. We're revving up staff. We're adding staff. We just brought on board 2 additional limited term employees to help us specifically with registration, answering calls, walk-ins, replacing ballots, et cetera.
And through the election period.
Through the election period. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we know you guys will be busy, and we appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week on recording.
Okay. We'll have you down
Not
under open
tomorrow
discussion.
for public.
No, tomorrow, next week recording, and then I'll come back with elections, and then you will see me every week.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, John, what other items do you have for us?
Well, I see Tammy just walked in the door. Georgia requested, I think, information based on a newspaper article that was in the paper about I think the newspaper couched it as a bike race that is being organized with 50 participants. I think
It's a charity event or something?
how it's come to us is as a charity event and a timed ride, and so I thought we'd be here, George, to maybe just see if you wanted to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah,
what
well,
concerns.
again, there was an article in Saturday's Aspen Times talking about a backcountry bike race that Lance Armstrong was putting together. Mm-hmm. And coincidentally, that evening I was at a dinner party and was talking to the manager of the Buttermilk, and she was telling me that they had initially asked her about using the parking lot at Buttermilk for staging, and she said, well, half of that is the ski companies, but the other half is the county, so they need to talk to the county. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, I wonder how this permit process worked, because they're going through Forest Service land, public lands, so I would think they would need a permit from the Forest Service. And then I was wondering about emergency responders, because this is a big deal. It's a 50-mile ride, starting at the base of Buttermilk, going over to Four Corners, of using open space public lands, and it seems like it's come together very, very quickly, and there's really been no information about it.
I'll let Tammy talk about it, because we do have a permit that's been submitted now. Before we do that, Open Space and Trails has also been contacted, because I think part of the route goes over Sky Mountain Park, and the management plan there prohibits commercial races or activities, but does allow for charity events. And so Open Space, in their review of the request, deemed that this was a charity event and consistent with their management plan. We are at the front end, I believe, of our permit process now, and I will hand it off to you because you know more about that than
And
me.
when is the event supposed to take place? This coming weekend?
Saturday. Yep. And so
They
right
run
now,
fast.
right now the comment period is open until Thursday, and then at that point we can issue the permit.
And please just introduce yourself for the public record.
Tammy Cochin, Pickens County Planner.
Thank you.
And they have limited it to 75 participants. I don't know if they expect to get that number. And the way they've represented it is it's not a race, that it's a bike ride. And then we have referred it to the Aspen Ambulance and dispatch. We notified Brian Pettit at Public Works, and he was okay with them using that parking lot, so he's been notified and gave his approval. There's no alcohol or food, and it does start out of buttermilk and end in buttermilk. So, and right, they've worked with, I think they're also getting permitted through the city of Aspen and the town of Snowmass. They have quite a winding course. So,
and are they getting permitted with the Forest Service? Is they're using Forest Service property?
I believe they're working with them. I don't know that they've gotten that permit.
Okay.
We just got a call into our office from the Forest Service, so we're checking on that.
Are we using county roads and state roads, highways?
I think
cross over to get from point A to point B, or
yeah, I can read you the course. It's quite complicated, and how they wind through Aspen. But I think there's a short part right when they leave Buttermilk. Let's see, they ride from Buttermilk, turn right onto Highway 82 towards Aspen, turn right onto Tyhack Road. It's a little bit convoluted in how they start, but then they essentially ride the Smuggler Mountain trails. And
so, one second. Traditionally, the Special Events Permit Committee, which entails a great many people, depending on alcohol and food and other things, they can issue those permits without bringing them back to the board. It's been more of a custom when an event has significant impacts, such as X Games or the Pro Bike Challenge, that they've always come to the board first before issuing. And I guess I'm kind of asking, so it's not unusual that we haven't heard about things that are in the process or it being applied for, and they were trying to get some press from the paper. When was the date that your special event committee is meeting and going to make a yes or no decision?
So it's actually just Mike and I, and then we refer it out to all the necessary
and
agencies.
based on their comments.
Yeah,
Right.
so Rachel, on a large event, we'll typically collect the group and there'll be a discussion either through Public Safety Council, like for X Games, or if there were a Pro Challenge. This is pretty small scale with up to 75 participants relative to other events that we've done. And so this is really something that we refer out and get comments back. We'd expect to hear back from the ambulance district, whether they have concerns about ability to cover, or fire districts if they're the EMT coverage, and I'm not exactly clear on the route myself what districts it's going to go through. And so we'll get those concerns back, and if there are any showstoppers in terms of the public safety coverage or routes, George, then that would play into the permitting decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small event in terms of numbers, but they're covering some huge backcountry in terms of access and if there was an emergency need. My question is, when did the process first start? When did they first come into ComDev or start this?
Yeah, I don't have that date.
I'm just kind of curious how short or how far out that they allow time to make sure that they're waiting. So today is Tuesday, and the event's this weekend, and they're still waiting to hear from the Forest Service.
I can get back to you on when that was applied for. It was a couple weeks ago. So
it's pretty short, pretty close in.
We've had shorter.
Yeah, you're right, but it hasn't been great. And
for sure.
It's an issue that we continue to have where these requests come in either to us or to ComDev at last minute, and then if we say no, and this race is set to go Saturday, well,
right, they hold it regardless.
We're the bad guys, right?
Yeah, and it seems to be more new events that don't realize the time period as opposed to people who are repeated, because we've talked about how do we
Get them in sooner.
Get them in sooner and then create that expectation of repeat events that you better be in sooner or we're just really not going to review you quickly enough for that or to get the public notice because, this one doesn't seem to be going through any caucus areas, but in the past we'd like to make sure we have noticed caucus areas.
Well, it's going to go through Woody Creek Caucus for sure.
Owl Creek Caucus?
Yeah. What's the charity? What's the charity?
I think they've said that they'll take donations for the Roaring Fork Mountain Bike Association.
That's a charity?
It's a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit.
It's kind of a little self-serving, I would say. But I guess that's others are like that.
Yeah,
I'm glad
others
you
are
brought-
like that too.
Patty? I just have to say, that intersection at Owl Creek and Highway 82, especially for people trying to make right turns, is not a great intersection. And to think of 75 people on bikes, mountain bikes, trying to get around that corner and up across that bridge to get to the Tyhack Road makes me very nervous. And I just want to stress that point.
Yeah.
And this weekends are busy, and they're still busy.
It's fall
they have
colors.
a huge international event this weekend, and with rugby players coming and going up and down the valley. So I just want to stress that I'm concerned about public safety.
So those are good comments for you to keep in mind. I'm sure you've heard similar from other people you've referred this to, but having folks at some of those key crossings is going to be pivotal, and that's something that the event needs to provide. Michael, did you have your?
Well, is there a submittal date for special events?
No, we don't
We
have
need to
a,
think about
a
that because
deadline.
we need to set a basis so the public itself can comment on it, and
public
we need to have. I would think. I don't know. We're asking the X Games essentially started a year ahead of time, almost a year ahead of time, because it's such a big event. So this is a quote unquote a small event. So we should think about that because it's not fair to just unleash these special events at a moment's notice onto the public in a crowded forum. And Sky Mountain Park is fairly crowded on Saturdays, right? Is that a good idea? Maybe on a Wednesday it's different, but on a Saturday?
You have a public notice process for events that are going to be used on public trails. So when you get the event, it comes out Friday afternoon when the race is Saturday because we don't even know if it's permitted yet.
But I think we should, as a board, should think about that process. So we're not surprised by a good idea of Lance Armstrong's at the last minute.
And Michael's absolutely right, and I think it's not the first time we've brought this up and asked that, ComDev with Cindy and Mike start to begin that process of giving us something reasonable, and certainly there are sometimes things come together a little more last minute, and we don't want to be so bureaucratic as to, blow the life out of that sort of creativity. But on the other hand, balancing with the legitimate neighborhood concerns and safety concerns and notice concerns, as Patty's brought up to the general public. If you're going to change your plans and not use Sky Mountain Park, that's one thing. And, usually they give some sort of projected time in which they'll be through and by various points.
Right.
And that's the type of thing the public needs to know. And there really won't be enough time for noticing of that. I can't see. So. Okay, is there anything else on that we'd like to add? Well, thank you very much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming over.
Okay. Additional open discussion items.
I don't have any.
Okay, Steve.
Jeanette asked me the other day to ask the board if we want to do a site visit at the Candy Resnick's Cypress Creek marijuana proposal. Now we did a site visit at the
High Mountain.
one on Lower River Road and the one at High Mountain. After, when there was a smell issue, they had already built the buildings there, but since a lot of this does seem to have to do with the location, it might be appropriate. And I had asked if we could have a site visit, but if no one else wants one, I don't know that we need to set up a.
Steve, thanks for bringing that up, because it wasn't clear. Jeanette had asked, and I don't think it was clear from staff's perspective, because Steve, you had made the request, but there wasn't really board direction that we could discern whether the board wanted us to set up a site visit or not for that.
I don't need to go.
Well, I would like to do a site visit if I know that they have access and this is moving forward and their water issues, but right now I'm not confident on their access issue or their water issue. So there's two issues that are, I don't know, that I'm not sure they're going to be able to resolve.
I'm kind of there with Patty. I'd like to see if those issues are going to
move forward the
forward
application
before scheduling something.
Those are sort of, a couple of potentially fatal flaws in their proposal that would be, we'd be wasting our time to do the site visit if the fatal flaws can't be resolved. And
Yeah, when we hear from, at that point, I'll take a look at doing a site visit, and, that's always gets, obviously, they're open to the neighbors or caucus members or whoever would like to attend with us. It's not a Q&A from them, it's our visit, but we'll see if when they get those resolved and look at scheduling them for those who'd like to attend. Michael, open discussion?
Well, I just looked up that article about the 50, and it says the event starts with a climb up Smuggler Road.
I thought it was up Smuggler too.
And then it hits Hunter Creek cutoff to the Iowa Shaft Trail. All popular routes. Riders will make their way across the upper bridge in Hunter Creek Valley, head upstream, climb the Hummingbird Trail, hook into the two roads that lead in the Four Corners. From there, they will take the single-track tail descent to Lanedo. From Lanedo, the riders would take county roads, although it says country roads here.
It's a county country
A
road.
paved path to the intercept lot at Brush Creek, and a paved path to the intercept lot at Brush Creek.
That's going up from Woody Creek from the
Down Smith Hill Road, across the bridge up the path.
That was just redone, the road from.
Yeah, but still, that just takes them to the intercept lot.
Yeah, then they go under the underpass, I think, over
Under
to
the pass, up to Sky Mountain, okay. Yes, okay, I see what you're saying.
But how are they going to get from their start
Intercept lot
Buttermilk
at
to
Brush Creek
Smuggler?
Road, they will make their way to Cozy Line for the climb into Sky Mountain and traverse on Skyline Ridge Trail before descending the always thrilling Deadline Trail. They use Highline Trail and the Tom Lake Trail to make their way to Selmax Village Mall.
Through town?
Then use roads to access the Rim Trail South, Rim Trail North, and the descent to the Recreation Center. They will follow Brush Creek Bike Path to make another climb up Cozy Line. Then they will descend on Airline Trail. The paved Owl Creek Trail and soft surface Buttermilk Connector will get them to the end of the ride at the Buttermilk parking lot. So
they may be ending at Buttermilk, but we don't know where they're starting.
Well, they're starting somewhere in town, essentially.
Yeah, in my backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the paper doesn't exactly match, I think, what's in our permit. So we'll need
to clarify that.
Yeah, staff will need to look at that.
Thanks, Michael.
But that route you just said does make a lot more sense in terms of
50 miles.
Yeah, Smuggler and staying primarily off roads.
Yeah, but if there's 75
Lanedo?
people, you can count on 75 cars. Where do 75 cars go at the base of Smuggler Road? What is that like?
And that will probably be, and that's so the permit gets submitted to a multi-jurisdictional website so that Aspen can see, what's happening. The county can see. The public safety entities can see and make those comments. And so, if in fact it's starting in Aspen, we'd be expecting Aspen to be reviewing those parking plans and staging plans. Because we don't have the authority to permit it.
It's just difficult. I mean, there's so much recreations you can stuff into a town at a time. And so you have a Saturday when everybody's stuffing recreation into the town.
Yeah.
And you go up Smuggler. I mean, it's just difficult to conceive that somebody isn't going to be upset by it.
I mean, what are the counts? Like, the open space counts are something like 400 people a day are utilizing Smuggler.
Oh, more than that, I bet you.
And that was a
I
year
see
ago.
it.
So they're Fluffy and their owner are walking up Smuggler, and the ride comes by, and Fluffy gets squished. I don't get it.
Well, we're hoping Fluffy doesn't get squished.
Yeah. But those are the possibilities.
Yeah, this is the dilemma, and we have been, at various times visited the special events permitting, and I think we've really struggled to get, both for the board to anticipate, the variety of events and timelines that we get requests on, and creating a set of rules that you guys and direction for staff that you guys are 100% comfortable with, and we can certainly workshop it again. I just think it's a real challenge to know what that. I mean, the problem is I don't think we have agreement necessarily on exactly what that balance should be. Generally, I think yes. But exactly what that balance should be, and so we come upon these events like this one that trigger is this really what we want in our community or not? And so we'll have to figure out how to have that conversation and dialogue, and we also need to have it with our partners, because we've got to come to some meeting of the minds with our municipal partners who are also sometimes promoting or encouraging these events that originate and finish in their jurisdictions but require county land to be carried out on.
Yeah, I mean, one of my main concerns is just having the public be aware of this, because this was in a little article in Saturday's paper. It's the first I heard about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so how many of the public who use Sky Mountain or use Smuggler, are they going to be aware of this? And so unless we have enough of a leeway to have a discussion and get that information out, which should be more than 5 days away, it just doesn't work. And maybe these special events, people have to be told that they need to come before the BOCC if it's going to include a large number of people or a large area of county facilities, to sort of do a check-in, sort of like what X Games did. They did a check-in about, can we extend our concert, can we do pyrotechnics, and so they knew ahead of time what we thought would be acceptable or not, and then they could plan accordingly.
So we obviously need to have a work session to kind of talk about this and have it noticed so that interested parties can be aware of it.
Patty?
Yeah, and John, would you just, since we don't have ComDev here, but George is right, but Smuggler Mountain on a Saturday morning, early on for most of the day, those parking lots, the bottom parking lot and the upper parking lot, are full. People drive their cars to walk up Smuggler Road. They don't take the bus that runs by there, or the shuttle vans from all the hotels are constantly dropping people off and picking them up. Because they go up, turn around, come back down. On Saturday mornings, I can sit on my front porch and just watch a constant stream, and to have 75 bikes, if they are truly going up there, which John said, and it does make better sense for that, for the 50 miles. I'm again concerned about public safety of the people that are not going to be prepared for 75 dirt bicycles going by them, mountain bikes, I should say.
I agree with everything that's been said.
It's crazy there in the morning.
I think we just have to.
See what
I
happens.
don't know that we can do anything at this point in this table now, but we've discussed it pretty thoroughly. I fully agree with the conversation that needs to occur. I'll add one small footnote to that, and this really came out of some discussion about Club 20 when I was there at their conference this past weekend, and they're trying to think about how do they evolve and change with the times and newer, younger members. And it was commented that, to tell you the truth, no one's reading Club 20 press releases because most of the young people we'd like to reach don't read newspapers anymore. They read social media. And that, unless you're getting it out, the fastest way to get something like that out is practically on Facebook or other Snapchat or Instagram or things like that. And so I don't want to get myself in trouble with this suggestion, but if this is going forward and we need to get the word out more quickly, John, perhaps we could put it out on Pitkin Alert of the route or something like that, so that people would know over the weekend who've signed up for that program. But in the future, I think we need to work towards greater utilization of the instantaneousness of notification, not as the sole measure, but as a complement to other measures of how we reach the public with information. Because if we are depending more, or as we have in the past, just newspaper ads, a lot of people aren't going to get it. I mean, even if you read the newspaper big articles online, you don't see any of the ads, and so you don't see these notices that are in the paper if you just read the articles as opposed to the online edition. Okay, so let's go back to open discussion. Are there other items that other people had to bring up for today? Okay, I am not seeing any. I will make one kind of small footnote today, maybe as opposed to tomorrow. But one of our discussion items tomorrow has to do with dogs and dog restrictions. And it really struck me that we talked about having a real discussion on dog policy and dog kenneling or removing restrictions or having restrictions 9 months or 12 months or maybe more ago when we had the last request. And that never happened. We never had.
It was longer ago than that because I wasn't on the board.
Yeah, and we'd never had a greater discussion about dogs in these areas, and so I just want to put that on the agenda, that we need to start that conversation with community development about those things, and it'll come up again tomorrow. And that's all I'm going to say, because it's obviously a quasi-judicial matter we'll be discussing in greater detail tomorrow. So I do not have any more open discussion items. No one else does. We would now go into our board reports. So let's see, we'll start with Northwest Council of Governments.
Okay, I'll be really brief. We are doing a executive director search. As of yesterday, the closing of applications, we had 24 people apply. So Monday is our first day of vetting applications. We're doing a 4-hour phone conference to try and whittle those down to the final few. And then we will be having interviews in the next couple of weeks over in Silverthorne again. But in person, so I haven't read through all the applications because they've been trickling in, and then of course Sunday I had 12, and yesterday at 5:15 I had 24. So people got a lot of last minute ones in there, so it'll be interesting to go through that. We're going to miss Liz. She's done an amazing job. Other than that, we just had our board retreat. We had a meeting over again in Frisco. It was great. We had really good programs. Liz has done a great job. Programs are up and running well. There's been just good community support. Breckenridge is thinking about rejoining. Avon and Silverthorne are the 3 jurisdictions that pulled out kind of part of the recession, and they're all showing interest in coming back in, which would be great. So that being said, I'll move to my next one, which is the workforce. We've not had a recent meeting. I, again, keep asking them when we do have our meetings, what are you doing for us in Pickens County? All of their efforts seem to be on the I-70 corridor. So I'm working on that. I still go to every meeting, and I'm usually one of the only commissioners. Myself and Karen are there. We're driven to be part of that group. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And can I just go on to the bark beetle while I'm speaking?
Sure.
The bark beetle, which has the new High Country Forest Collaborative name, we are actually having a collaboration of collaboratives. In October, we're having a meeting in Keystone. And we're inviting all the forest collaboratives in Colorado to attend, and we're going to sit at the table and find out what we're doing, all the different collaboratives, and what is not being done, and hopefully that'll repurpose the CCB, the Colorado Bark Beetle Cooperative, or the High Country Forest Collaborative, into a new mission, or it may be determined that we don't have one. Everything's being done. But so it should be an interesting meeting to have all those people from all across the state in the room. And it's moving along, actually, I think, better than we thought it would. So,
Patty, I don't know if it would be possible of who is organizing that meeting to see if they can get an update or report from, Michael Bennett's staff or someone like that, Senator Gardner's staff, about where the firefighting dollars are in the federal budget and
Yeah,
the process
and I don't know if
and
it's-
mitigation work. as
It's
opposed
Abby
to-
Cobb, and I know that's part of the discussion, which may be the gap that's not being filled, and that may be what the Colorado or the High Country Forest Collaborative does from now on, is look at the legislative issues and how we can be, make county commissioners aware of what we need to do for lobbying at the state and federal level.
That's what I was
So that
thinking.
may be the gap that we have, and I don't know. We have not had good attendance at Northwest COG meetings. We invite them. I personally invite people to come to our Northwest COG meetings, and we have not had good representation from either office, which has been interesting, or from congressional.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. I guess because people think the forests are getting better when they're just burning down. So,
Yeah.
but I'll bring
Okay.
that up with Abby.
Yeah, because
That's a good point.
I was just thinking it would be nice to have another partner helping push those funding
and then-
issues with NACO and others like
And that may be the gap that this organization decides to fill, but that's one of the purposes of this meeting. So.
Perfect.
Steve? When you go down to Crete, if you get a chance
Look at the
to go look at the spruce beetle kill that killed about 200,000 acres of spruce trees.
Yeah.
Closer, you go up the valley in the direction of Lake City is where I think the bulk of it is, where you can see.
Yeah,
from the
just see if I
highway.
can get up that way.
And maybe there's
It's a
a
tight time
coalition down there that's.
We're
that you
inviting
could-
all of them across the state, so hopefully we'll get them all at the same
that's
table.
Similar to the bark beetle, but it's a spruce
Yeah.
beetle thing is a little different.
Okay, so that's me.
Okay, George Newman's core.
The core board met for the first time ever with the Garfield Clean Energy Board. And Garfield Clean Energy Board is made up of 6 municipalities, RAFTA, CMC, and maybe someone else. So they're a funder for energy efficiency programs in Garfield County. And so we had a great meeting. We discussed opportunities to work together on different projects. They're very interested in pursuing low-income energy efficiency grants, similar to what CORE does with our REACH program. So we're going to try to see whether we can identify and go after joint grants for that. And we're also looking at following the watershed roundtable that Cindy Hubin has been very successful in putting together, including all the municipalities throughout the Roaring Fork Valley, and putting together an energy collaborative just to be able to share information, share ideas, and so it was a really productive meeting.
Can I just, on the weatherization, it did come up with program presentations at COG, the weatherization issue, and I asked the gentleman who runs the weatherization program, can't think of his name, to contact both CLEAR and CORE, because that would be a great effort, because apparently there's other of the weatherization programs that are like Lake City or Lake County. They have a lot of need, but they don't have any organizations to actually do the work. So COG is coming in on an interim basis and helping to do that work in those jurisdictions because we're set up to do it. So that would be a good. So and I told them to get in touch with Mona.
Yeah, good.
Okay, very good. Steve, CCI?
I went to the Mountain District meeting on August 25th. It was held over in Edwards, which was the closest CCI meeting you could almost possibly hope to go to.
Did people get lost trying to get there?
I didn't get lost. So we went over all the different legislative priorities, which will have to be whittled down at the upcoming CCI meeting on September 30th. And we have our restaurant inspection fee bill as one of those that will be considered there. One thing they handed out was the analysis of the legislative things that passed last session that affect counties. And I don't know if, John, have you gotten a copy of that? Would be I should probably just make a copy of this and get it to you, but it's the different things that were passed in the legislation, that the mandates and authorities and things that affect
I'd like
counties.
to see that whole packet that you have there.
So maybe we should just make copies and get this to everybody because it's pretty educational.
Yeah, CCI might have it online.
It probably is on, yeah, I think
to be
it
able
would be.
to send us a link or something instead of having to make all the copies.
Okay, yeah.
I like the hard copy. Yeah.
I'll go ahead and do that, because this one says new authorities and mandates. I think that's really important that we don't miss something that's in there.
Okay.
So that's all.
Okay, and the next CCI meeting is going to be coming up at the end of this month on the 30th. That's one all-day thing on Friday the 30th, and then we'll be looking at everyone else's legislative proposals that they've put forward and also reviewing the policy platforms of each individual subcommittee. I plan on attending that, and then I believe that the day before, on the 29th, Boulder has asked that folks who are interested in how we deal with some of the schisms within CCI who are already going to be coming and convening that area to meet with them on Thursday, and I will be able to attend that meeting as well.
Yeah, also, I'm planning on going over also, Rachel.
Good.
I believe that CCI on Thursday is also going to be having a meeting of the strategic planning.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, so we might have to divide our forces there, and one go to the Boulder meeting and one go to the CCI meeting. I don't know the time of it. I presume that starts at 9 in the morning, though.
Yeah, well, CCI, I do not know about, I haven't heard anything about the Thursday meeting with CCI, and we'll both just have to, as you say, coordinate our schedules and divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. QQ, I kind of skipped myself. We did have a meeting in June on the 29th. It was kind of an update of what happened with the legislative agenda. There was some discussion about aquatic nuisance species and the issue, as you know, we fund some of the boat inspections coming from the water fund up at Rudai to avoid the zebra mussels. And one of the outcomes of that was a letter to Senator Bennett's office, and Senator Bennett's office has taken the issue up and is trying to insert some funding through Bureau of Reclamation for the actual boat inspections, as opposed to just the research they're doing now. So we did get some response from those offices, and again, being out of session, there's nothing that's too big of an issue. They haven't raised dues in, I can't remember whether 3 or 5 years, and they're looking at a small dues increase, and I sent that information on to Connie and John. I think I may have CC'd you both, and I think it was something under $500, 300 and something. And so just put that forward. So that's all that's happening there. Their next meeting actually is going to be October 6th in Steamboat. They have their summer meetings kind of traveling around a little bit to far out members, and then they tend to stay on the I-70 corridor in the winter. So that will be in Steamboat if anybody else would like to attend that. But as I said before, I think my attendance there will mean I missed that GOCO board dinner in Carbondale that date. So hopefully other board members will be attending that. Club 20 just had their big fall meeting this past weekend. I was attending that all day Friday, from early morning executive board meetings through the welcome dinner, and then the next day from 8 a.m. to about 9:30 p.m. with the debates for everyone. And so the one thing it brought to my attention, and we don't need to obviously talk about it now, but if there are various ballot measures that are going to be on the state ballot that our board would like us to consider and take a position of opposing or supporting, just bring them to my attention, and we'll try to make sure with John that we have enough time to discuss those. There are things like the Amendment 69, single-payer healthcare system. There's a state increase of the minimum wage, which I think wouldn't affect our resort community anyhow. We're all kind of a little beyond that as it is now. It's to get up to $12.20 an hour by 2020. And I've heard that you can't hire anyone for less than that in this area anymore. And then things like raise the bar, which would increase the standard for initiatives for changing the state constitution. And so there's pros and cons that are out there about both of those, and so there were a lot of presentation on that. Debates between Senator Bennett, the Republican challenger, Darrell Glenn, and interestingly enough, the Libertarian candidate, Lily Williams, because they had reached a threshold of 1% of the registered voters in the state. And Gail Schwartz and Congressman Tipton, and then every district up and down from Millie Hamner, Diane Mitch Bush, throughout everybody who's running who represents the Western Slope. So it's very informative, and it's a great way to get the issues of Club 20 and the Western Slope in front of our legislators. And that was that. And then the next would be the Colorado River Basin Roundtable. And Steve, that's back to you.
Okay, I went to the Next Steps meeting, which was on around August 23rd. I can't remember the exact date. We had a discussion of the Legacy Project, but neither one of the two principals were there. Lewis Meyer or Ken Ransford weren't there, and they're the two really pushing that. But that would be selecting a watershed to do a series of projects to try to improve the flow of water in the streams. So that's an ongoing thing. Will take a long time, but there will be more discussion at the full meeting. The next full meeting will be on September 26th. And one of the items that will be brought up then is a proposal.
Wait. Oh, okay, I'm in the wrong month.
The 26th.
Okay, thank you.
Trout Unlimited is asking for funds to do a study on 4 Mile Creek, where there are several different options for getting more water to be left in the creek just to improve the environment for well, it must be for fish. It's Trout Unlimited pushing it, but a lot of it would be just improving the insect life in the stream. And so that was a really interesting presentation. And there was a short presentation about the integrated water management planning meeting, which was held in Glenwood Springs, which I don't really know that much about what was discussed at that, but I just did yesterday copy off the notes from that meeting. So I know that Laura Maker was supposed to go to that integrated water management planning meeting, but she wasn't able to. So I'm not sure if we had any county staff there at all.
I don't know.
But we might want to follow up on that and try to decipher what happened at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thanks kind of for the water reminder. I should mention I did go to the Colorado Water Congress in Steamboat in August, and also was able to attend, because the schedules matched up, one of the Interbasin Compact Committee's ongoing meetings. They're now looking at how do we implement the state water plan as it's been passed. And it was primarily a discussion about funding, which, the plan calls for somewhere between $18 and $22 billion worth of water investment when you're talking about storage and Trans Mountain diversions and efficiencies for ag and stream health and everything like that. I do not know, given where the state of Colorado's budget is, how they're going to do that. But the one thing that was interesting, they're kind of looking at water from roof for the endangered fish and not leasing that as well. So back to seeing Rudi doing these much larger amounts and being more responsible for the fish water. The two downsides, of course, are that eventually Ute Water Conservancy will need that water for its own purposes, and its intakes are closer to what is that? Not Rulison, the next town towards Junction.
By DeBeck.
Yeah. And so it doesn't actually ever reach the endangered fish 15-mile reach. And then also, of course, the stacking of different flow rights and contract water that eventually will really make the frying pan somewhat unfishable. So I was able to bring that issue up to the IBCC members to say that, as long as you're looking at $18 billion worth of fixes to the water system, you're going to have to take care of some past oversights that would allow our frying pan river fishery to be destroyed, become more of a delivery flume than a real river. So that was that meeting, and I'll just leave it at that. And we will go to Rudi Water and Power Authority with Michael.
They talked about the product nuisance program, which is hard to fund. It's hard to, so if Senator Bennett's bill goes through, that'd be great.
That's good.
I can't imagine it going through, but that would be great. And really the changeover we're looking at, Rudolph, Mark really is going to retire in 2018. So what do we do, and how do we have a more permanent kind of organization without Mark? And what would that organization look like? So those are the discussion points. So it's difficult, in terms of the frying pan. This is just a personal thing. The frying pan, was a incidental fishery. In other words, the dam went in. I don't think anybody realized that it would create such a great fishery, and that fishery is heavily used. So that fishery actually needs to be regulated. And in Montana, for instance, they don't have fishing in the winter. They just don't allow it. And the fish in the frying pan are essentially, every guide knows the fish in the frying pan.
Personally.
Yeah. And so they lead their clients to the fish they know. And the fish get damaged and hurt and abused. And so that's the other side of it, right? So there needs to be, I think, a full discussion, not only the flows in the frying pan, but the use of the frying pan, and what that looks like, and giving the frying pan a rest at some point, I think. But that's a personal thing. The next thing is RAFTA.
Actually, ACRA.
Well, ACRA, we had a presentation by Allison Daly for Pathfinders, and that was a very touching and affecting kind of presentation. She does counseling with people with cancer and families who are being affected by it, and families who are experiencing loss. And it was a great presentation, one of the better presentations we've had. So, and also the other interesting thing was the hospital. Terry Collins was there and talked about concerns at the hospital about security, just as a general topic. The hospital has lots of entrances, right? So you don't know who's coming and going and what to do about it. And I think it's the same kind of thing we're facing with our buildings and passes and who gets in and where do you get in and what do you do when somebody's in the building that shouldn't be in the building. So that's something I think we probably should engage with them on and talk about how you control a public building. You have an open public building, but a safe public building, and what kind of drills you have when it isn't safe. So that was ACRA.
Now we'll go on to RAFTA.
RAFTA's getting into its budget season, and we'll see how that goes. RAFTA has close to 300, right? Isn't that what the figure was? 300 employees. It's a very large organization. And I talked to John about it, and their health costs have gone up 15%. So I asked John to enter into a conversation with them about controlling their costs.
And then when you were talking about safety from the hospital and public entities, well, that was a discussion with RAFTA in terms of how do we protect our drivers who are getting abused verbally and physically. What does that mean to the passengers in terms of their safety? And so, it's an issue that.
Yeah. So maybe there should be a security conference with the large organizations in the valley
That's a good idea.
talking about security.
That is a very interesting, good idea, Michael.
So, but the most interesting thing was at RAFTA was that MZVZ gave a presentation.
On the
He was on the
television?
agenda, and he gave a presentation on Transit TV, which I was still left with trying to understand what he was talking about, but essentially it's the use of TVs or monitors on a bus to have information for the passengers and keep the passengers occupied, essentially, whether it's news, weather,
advertising,
whatever. So, and RAFTA's interested in terms of revenue. How do you get more revenue? And we'll see. I don't know. You know, we face the same problem out at the airport, right? That we have screens, and some people like them, some people don't. It's a lot of revenue. Raptor doesn't make that kind of revenue, but if they had that kind of revenue, they'd like it. But would the passengers like it? I don't know. So we'll see. So that's it for the.
Thank you. And just out of curiosity, do you know when they're probably going to finish the rehab of the building out at the Airport Business Center?
You mean the Aspen Maintenance Facility?
Yeah.
Huge.
What they call AMF. Well, just put the buses inside, essentially.
Yeah, it looks like it.
So they're not out in the rain and the weather and have to get in and scrape, clean them. So I can't tell you when it's going to be done, but it looks like they're making very good progress. So it looks like they're roofed in. So
I would agree with that. And we are just about finished our open discussion items. The next item would be the Senior Council.
Senior Council had a booth at the Aspen Farmers Market. It's at the Mason and Morse, has a spot in front of their office where they let nonprofit or community organizations have it for a week. So we had a lot of the Senior Council members who were helped participate in that, and there was always one of the staff members from the Senior Services was there. So we get a lot of people coming by just to find out about what is offered in the community. They had a very successful event at ARC that I wasn't able to go to, but I think it's always a popular event for different activities that seniors or anybody over, approaching what you consider being a senior citizen can participate in. Different Senior Council members are individually working on different aspects of the Aging Well in Pickens County plan. So I personally am interested in the housing options, and so I went to one meeting. There's kind of a coalition of different governments and organizations in the Roaring Fork Valley who are working on housing projects individually. So there's somewhat of an effort to bring all these different groups together to have a more united effort to work on housing issues, both for senior citizens as well as employees, and perhaps even for homeless people, to make a more permanent housing for some of the homeless population. So that will be an effort that I'll keep you informed on what's happening on that as time goes on.
Thank you, Steve. Northwest Council, Nordic Council. Saw the NC there.
Are we skiing yet? Nordic Council didn't meet, and TPR did not meet.
Okay.
There was a ski race in New Zealand that Noah Hoffman and Simi Hamilton came in. I don't remember who was first and who was second, but they're actually already having ski races on the world class ski races.
Okay, and then the last item is the Climate Coalition.
Climate Coalition, we had two different retreats. One recently. I don't know if Cindy walked out of the room, but one thing, we have a mission statement which was passed around a whole bunch and wordsmith, but the mission statement says Colorado Communities for Climate Action, CC4CA, is a coalition of local governments advocating for policies that protect Colorado's climate for current and future generations. So that's a done deal. We're working on policy priorities, and there are 23 different policy priorities that we've whittled it down to 6 to 8 of them that are proposed to be priorities for this year. It's kind of a similar process that CCI goes through. And I'm thinking that on some date, we probably want to have Cindy Hubin come in, and maybe Chris Mangus from the city of Aspen, possibly.
Discuss the priorities.
And we might do it in a joint meeting with the city, actually, to actually go over the specific priorities that
That would be a good
we're
joint
looking
meeting.
at
It's a good joint meeting
for
topic.
this year.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay, thank you.
and also the process of during the legislative season, there will be sort of a legislative committee to track legislation that comes along that is applicable. So there might be times when we need to weigh in on different bills that are coming at us from a different viewpoint than the CCI bills or other bills too.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
You know how that process goes.
We know how that process works.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that ends it for board reports. Did anybody have any final questions or comments on that? We are still in special meeting, and I would accept a motion to go into back into executive session to be able to get advice from our attorney.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are in executive session then, and thank you, Grassroots. We can go off the air. This should only take a few minutes, but,
We have the same room that we were in this
okay,
morning.
so we'll go back over the same room we were in, and
Rachel, is this only going to be about the
Yeah.
Snowmass Creek, so I can leave?